William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
One sure way to reduce the body beautiful and eliminate excess fat is horizontal living. Lie prone and don't blow your lid. Your coffin lid, that is.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. A smart confidential cop keeps a straitjacket handy as standard office equipment. The time has to come when you want to rush a prospective client to Bellevue for observation. What else can you do when a guy pops in, tells you his name is Julius Caesar, and then without any further explanation starts bawling like a baby? Julius Caesar, right out of Runyon. Pants under his hip line like a Burlicue comic. A checkered vest with egg stains. And a face that could only advertise a meat grinder. Here, my handkerchief. Dry your eyes. I only said to dry your eyes. You through blubbering?
Yeah.
What are you crying over?
Cleo,
Your dog?
my wife.
She ran off with a piano mover?
Would I be wearing this armband?
Oh, black armband. I'm sorry. You're a widower.
No.
You said she was your wife.
Is my wife.
She died and came back?
Cleo never died.
Then why the mourning band?
Cleo is gonna die, for sure.
Some incurable disease?
You and me put together, Cleo is healthier.
Now I'm in utter confusion.
I was to a tea room.
Oh, I didn't know they had pool tables and tea rooms.
Look, I'm in there getting my fortune told. I'm gonna lose Cleo, it says in the tea leaves. Cleo has got to go.
What's going to kill her?
Not what. Who? That is what I want to know.
You, maybe?
Chop off my arm, I wouldn't hurt Cleo. I love this doll.
That's the whole basis of your fears? Cleo didn't make out in the tea leaves?
Let alone that, someone has tried to get to her already.
Clear up, get to her for me.
Rub her out. Depart, Cleo, from my midst.
Somebody tried to murder Cleo?
What was I saying?
Don't you know?
Okay, murder.
Describe the attempt, Julius.
Cleo has got a medicine for pep. A hangover had her down. So she took a swallow of this stuff.
What was she drinking instead?
Poison. Somebody had switched the bottles on Cleo.
That's the attempt?
No, I got a few more. This one, for instance. Coming down the stairs. Soap. Now her spine is out of whack. Cleo leans a little.
To the right or left?
Left. No, right. No. Oh, I give up.
Who's behind all the mayhem?
I wouldn't be here if I knew. Here. 3 C's on account. I took a mortgage on a shop.
Shop?
Flowers. I run a flower shop over at Prince and Fort. For free, any time I'll make you up a wreath.
Oh, no thanks. Save it for Cleo.
The biggest in town. When Cleo goes, it'll need a Mack truck to haul it. Here, I'll show you a picture of Cleo. In a bathing suit.
Where's the bathing suit?
Bikini. That's a type suit. In the picture there, Cleo's in the contest.
Contest?
Yeah, Mrs. Apple Pie, 1952. This is a contest for married queens who can bake. A gent who manufactures the stuff, the pies, that is, Mr. Willoughby. He's sponsoring the contest. 20 grand.
20 grand?
That's the first prize.
How are Cleo's chances?
You've seen her picture.
But I haven't tasted her pie.
Smooth. It slides into your stomach. You don't even need no teeth. Cleo can't miss. Only, you see, that's what's going to get her knocked off.
The envious competition.
Yeah, them. Cleo's got to be stopped, somebody figures. Oh, please, don't leave me lose her.
Well, I'll do my best. Where is Cleo now?
Calamity House. That's a hotel this sponsor Willoughby rented out in Sheepshead Bay. The whole joint. Every contestant has got to stay there and take a turn in the kitchen.
Baking pies.
All week long. They judge them on the pies, and then they judge them on their looks.
Calamity House. Okay, Julius. You've whet my appetite. I'll go have myself a pie. As it so happened, I ran into Cleo before I got to Calamity House and Apple Pie Heaven on the highway, going up an incline where a sign warned Horseshoe Curve. Coincidence or destiny? I made a note to look up a mystic and ask him sometime. Anyhow, I hadn't made the top of the hill when a car flung around the upper-level curve coming down toward me. A car out of control, it looked like. I braked to a dead stop. The runaway car whizzed past me. I got a photo look of a lady driver, and then came the crash. A car crash creates employment. Specialists pile in like grips at a sideshow. When the emergency squads got finished, I huddled with Lieutenant Trav Rogers. Trav had jumped at the chance to head out to Sheepshead Bay at the first radio flash. Trav liked the sea air.
Cleo Odell was her name.
Cleo Odell Caesar.
Caesar?
She was married to Julius Caesar.
Her age didn't show.
I'm not joking.
No, you're not? All right, instruct me.
Later. Meanwhile, let's get down to the whys and wherefores of the accident.
Negligent driving or inexperience coming down inclines or her brakes wouldn't work. Au revoir, Cleo Odell.
No good, Trav.
What's wrong with my reconstruction?
The cuts and gashes on the victim's face and neck.
You get badly marked up and cut racing downhill into a crash?
I examined the car.
So did I.
The safety glass cracked, but it didn't shred or splinter.
Yes, that's so. I made a note of that, even wondered a bit.
With no chips of glass flying about, how could she get cut up as she was? Another thing.
Yes, Craig?
If you checked over the corpse.
I left that to Dr. Conway.
I didn't. I satisfied myself. The bleeding from those cuts on her face and neck, they'd begun to dry.
You're certain of that?
I'm positive they couldn't be fresh wounds sustained from the crash itself. Those cuts and gashes came earlier, before the bottom of the hill.
You've mustered a pretty convincing story.
I've got a clincher. Come over to the wreck. Take a look at the gas accelerator.
All right. So?
Feel around it.
It's wedged to the floorboard.
What's wedging it?
What? Oh, wait. A pebble. This pebble was wedging the gas accelerator.
I discovered that 20 minutes ago.
But I had two men, Muller and Wilson.
They missed the pebble. They weren't looking for evidence of foul play.
No. Looked for all the world like a cut-and-dried vehicular accident. Car out of control, an unfortunate fatality.
It was murder. Cleo Odell was beaten to death, beaten around the head and neck by a blunt instrument. That's where she got those cuts and gashes.
The killer then sat her in the car, rigged the gas accelerator by wedging it with this pebble, switched on the ignition, sent the car down the incline.
Trying for the perfect murder. In Calamity House, pattering about the main suite like a Maharaja, I found the contest sponsor and pie manufacturer, Mr. Willoughby. His Highness was wearing a scarlet lounging robe with a golden dragon growling across it.
This tragedy, Mr. Craig, it casts a damper.
Murder does that, Willoughby.
Murder? But I thought...
The first police flash was a mistake. Clea was beaten to death before she went joyriding down an incline.
I'm bewildered. I cannot grasp.
Let's stray from the corpse until your blood pressure can take it better. Answer me this. What were Cleo Odell's chances of pocketing your $20,000?
Why, most excellent indeed.
Her pies hit the spot?
They were outstanding. In the first 4 contest days, Cleo Odell had won 456 points. We have a point scoring system.
Skip the intricacies. Who was the runner-up? The missus closest to Cleo's 456. The contestant most likely to win, if not for Cleo.
Why, Lois LaRue. Her point score so far, I believe, is 372. Yes, 372.
And the rest of the field?
Oh, below 200. Their chances of forging ahead to victory are quite doubtful.
Okay, then. Lois LaRue. Cleo alive could cost Lois $20,000.
Well, surely you don't think...
I'm only asking. Now, about looks, shapes, how much rides with that?
Physical beauty determines the winner only in the event that there is a close race between 2 or 3 contestants. If the spread in points between contestant 1 and 2 or 1 and 2 and 3 is less than 50...
Less than 50? Well, that ends that. Cleo was a mile ahead of everybody. Her runner-up and survivor, this Lois LaRue, is also miles ahead of the field.
Yes. After Cleo Odell, it appears the award must go to Lois LaRue.
Who awards points? Or maybe let me say it this way. Who judges the quality of the pies and hands out the points?
Our judge, Mr. Cornell, Vincent Cornell. Mr. Cornell is a well-known illustrator.
Who appointed him judge?
I did. If you're minded to impugn...
Simmer down, Your Highness. I'm just acquainting myself with background. All right for me to go have myself a pie?
Why, of course. Any number of them. The kitchen is on the basement level. Every pie is enriched with exclusive Willoughby ingredients. A secret miracle chemical, exclusive with Willoughby.
Cut, you've got your plug in. You're keeping me from the pies. I loaded up on pies, and then I let Lois LaRue feed me vital statistics about herself. A brunette with hair of midnight black, and a cute nose that tilted at the tip like a ski jump. Her bathing suit made me feel overdressed. Lois looked like she'd been tipped off to my coming. She had soft lights and softer music going.
A drink, Mr. Craig?
No, thanks. And, let's switch off the music, huh? Romance and murder mix badly.
Oh, it was a terrible thing. Cleo had so much to live for.
There was a neat $20,000 in her future.
But you can't say that with certainty. The contest hasn't finished.
It was in the bag for Cleo. She was a mile ahead on points. Ahead of you.
There are 9 contestants here in Calamity House.
The other 7 are hanging on for the exercise.
All right, I won't argue it. Except to say that I felt I could win somehow.
And somehow you're going to. That's for sure.
I don't know how to take that.
Resent it if you can muster outraged innocence.
If I can... Why, of all the gold...
No throwing things. And don't throw music and curves at me, beautiful. I look at that utter torso of yours, and all I can see is a corpse. The corpse of Cleo Odell. Now, let's get businesslike.
Well, what do you expect of me?
Some insight into you. You're right up front in my gallery of suspects.
Merely because I was closest to winning after Cleo?
Because 20 grand is bait, and you look to me like hunger. Like you'd die if you lost the contest.
All right. I admit it. I am intense about winning. I don't dare lose. This contest isn't my gamble alone. They're investors. It's their gamble, too.
Investors meaning?
Backers. My family and friends. They've shelled out every penny they could raise to dress me, pay for my photographs, publicity, miscellaneous expenses. I'm a corporate body. I've been cut into percentages, into pieces.
Familiar stuff, speaking of contests. How does your husband fit into the situation?
My husband?
This is a contest for married women only.
Oh, yes, my husband, Zach.
Zach?
Zach Foster. He manages me, too, represents me.
Where is he?
Why, around. Zach floats around.
What is he, a balloon?
Oh, well, I mean, Zach can't be pinned down to a place, so to speak. He's on the move, making arrangements, contacts. Sometimes he's here at the hotel, other times somewhere else.
I see. Next time you see Zach, tell him to stay put long enough to exchange introductions with me. Tell him Barrie Craig wants to talk to him. The absent husband, Zach, presented himself a little unexpectedly. I was down in the kitchen again, sinking my overjoyed molars into more pies.
You Barrie Craig?
Wait till I check my driver's license.
Put your hands up.
Must I?
And don't put your hands up. See if I can. Teacher.
Oh, my jaw. Teach me what?
To terrorize my wife.
I talk better standing. I terrorized your wife, you say?
Lois LaRue. I found her in hysterics, a poor kid. Crying her eyes out. You just left, she said.
I talked to her, sure.
You worked over her. Like she was on trial.
She must feel awfully guilty to have reacted like that.
Watch that tongue, Craig. You can't throw murder accusations around and get away with it.
not with Zach Foster around, huh?
Lois is sensitive.
Like a cigar store Indian.
She goes off her feed. She can't bake. She thins down because she can't eat or sleep. She loses her figure.
She consequently loses the contest.
Yeah. That's your game? To take the steam out of Lois? You working on the slide for some other contestant?
Uh-huh.
You admit it.
I'm working in the open for some other contestant. For Cleo Odell.
Wise guy.
Cleo Odell. Want to confess to murdering her, maybe?
Craig, I'm gonna declare total war.
You already declared it, chum. You fired the first shot. It's my turn now for a counteroffensive. I was up before the count of 10, chum. Let's see if you beat my time. One thing about a contest judge, he doesn't ever look the part. He looks nervous, like he's only doing the job because somebody's got a gun at his head. The illustrator, Vincent Cornell, gave the standard impression.
Oh, how I ever got into this thing.
How did you?
Mr. Willoughby requested me to judge the contest as a personal favor to him.
Why should that move you?
Well, Mr. Willoughby is an important advertiser in magazines I do illustrating for. It was necessary goodwill that I...
And you did. Now to the contest. Question. Has there been any undue pressure on you?
Undue pressure?
To influence you, get you to vote points. Favor some one contestant.
Well, what makes you think to ask that?
Since I don't see you blow an immediate fuse, it looks like my question is very much in order.
Well, I have no answer for you.
Don't make me coax too hard. We're not just passing the time, Cornell.
Yes, I know the seriousness, the enormity, Miss Odell.
The recent Miss Odell.
I can't afford to get involved and get mixed up. A scandal could be troublesome to me professionally. Pursue your investigation in some other manner. Interrogate the others, and good luck to you. I simply will not be involved, and I'll say nothing. In fact, I'm resigning as judge at once.
Come off it, Cornell. You can resign all over the lot, but you're still going to find things troublesome.
What do you mean?
Late hours in a certain room in police headquarters. There'll be 20 guys packed around, with you the center of attraction. How do you sleep sitting up in a straight chair?
Mr. Craig, I'm confused.
Tell what you know and watch the confusion evaporate. Undue influence. What about it?
Well, I found myself pressed to favor Cleo Odell.
Cleo Odell?
You seem surprised.
Yeah. I thought any pressure on you would be on behalf of the runner-up, Lois LaRue. That nice husband of hers, so-called Zach Foster.
No, there were no overtures made to me, no pressure or prompting for Lois LaRue, only for the late Cleo Odell. I, in fact, questioned some 200 points I awarded her. In thinking it over later, I felt I was, influenced.
Who pressured you?
Mind you, it wasn't overt. It was something subtle, more insidious. Say, a notion cleverly planted in my thinking, a bias.
Never mind how it was done. Who pressured you?
Ow!
Cornell!
I've been shot.
Yeah. Someone outside your window aiming a rifle. How bad is it?
It hurts. Go seize...
Can't. I've got to lie here, flat beside you, and keep my fingers crossed. There's a second shot coming. That was for me. Insurance in case I'd gotten the whole story out of you. Name who pressured you for Cleo. Cornell. Cornell. Not much point questioning a corpse. Murder to shut Cornell up. A rifleman with a nice sense of timing. The search outside the window turned up nothing, except an overturned flower pot. No footprints. You don't find any on flagstone. The search of the grounds reintroduced me to my client, Julius. Julius was sitting on the edge of a goldfish pond, crying into it. I loaned you my one good handkerchief this morning.
I got it here in my pocket.
Be my guest. Blow your nose. You really got something to blubber about now. No kidding this time.
I won't never stop crying.
Do it someplace else. You got the fish pond overflowing.
I lost Cleo.
Cleo lost more. What brings you here to Calamity House?
To see you. I got things to talk over.
Where did you park your BB gun?
I don't get you.
How long have you been squatting down here?
10 minutes?
Then you heard 2 rifle shots.
No.
Like peals of thunder and with breaking glass. What are you, stone deaf?
No.
No what?
Not stone deaf, but I don't hear good. I once got a draft deferment because I don't hear good.
Oh, Julius, you kill me.
Wouldn't I like to?
Repeat that, please.
For losing me Cleo. Craig, they're going to pin it on me. Lay Cleo's murder to me.
On what ground?
15 grand. Double indemnity. That makes 30.
$30,000? You carried insurance on Cleo?
Yeah, double if Cleo went in an accident, like a train or a car.
A policy that size is suspicious. All of a sudden, I even suspect you myself, Julius.
Oh, don't say that.
Are there any other suspicious circumstances wrapped around that policy?
Yeah, there are. You see, I got the policy only 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before Cleo went down the incline?
Yeah.
2 weeks before this afternoon?
Yeah, that's what.
Cleo was murdered, and the killer tried awfully hard to make it look like an accident. A vehicular accident.
Looks bad for me, huh?
I can practically see you in the electric chair.
Oh, Craig, don't say that.
Get him like Julius and get your funny bone tickled. While the client maybe fits you for a pair of horns. A comic character, friend Julius, weak in the head. But what was so dumb about 15 grand? Double indemnity equals 30. To me, it qualified Julius as a genius, and maybe even a murderer. When a confidential cop's stuck for an answer, he reaches into his bag for a trick, like I did. My trick was to conceal evidence of murder. The illustrator and recent contest judge, Cornell. I decided to let him spend the first hour or so of the hereafter in a clothes closet. A corpse in a closet and a locked room. In case people wandered about a little too freely in Calamity House. I made myself conspicuously available in Calamity House, the main lobby. I couldn't be missed by anybody. Even a blind man could reach me by the odor of my cigar. The first gent to buttonhole me was Zach Foster, looking as if it was quite an effort to come up and talk to me.
Craig?
Zach.
Okay to talk to you?
Is it round 2?
No. War's over as far as I'm concerned. Anyhow,
Peace. It's wonderful.
Frankly, I'm frightened stiff.
Of what?
Well, you mainly. The way you go about things. And the slant you're working on. How Cleo Odell died, who killed her, and why.
Did you?
No. But it might fit. You might make it fit. That's why I'm scared. For me and a kid.
Who's the kid?
Lois. You see.
You're about to make a confession.
Yeah. A confession is something I think you've already guessed.
That you're not married to Lois.
And you did guess. No. We're in a contest on false pretenses. We don't qualify. Lois is single. I promoted her into the lie. I got her to go along with the swindle, make out she was a Mrs. Zach Foster.
You just talked yourself out of 20 grand.
Yeah, I know. I'm scared off. I don't want a rap we don't rate. The murder of Cleo Odell can't be laid to us.
Now what, Zach?
I'm going to locate the contest judge, Cornell, and make a clean breast. Tell him what I just told you. Why Lois LaRue should be disqualified. Then I'm going to clear out. I mean, if it's okay with you.
It's okay with me. You just cleared yourself, all right, in a bigger way than you suspect. But stick around a while anyhow. I stuck it out in the main lobby of Calamity House, behind a cigar, conspicuously available to all comers. The next arrival to claim my ear was the Maharaja himself, the contest sponsor, Willoughby. No purple dressing gown this time. The only thing purple on him was his face.
Craig,
Your Highness?
I've been embarrassed and distressed. The Willoughby name has become infamous. The contest has been scandalized. I've become notorious.
Relax, Willoughby.
Relax, you say? With this succession of outrages? I disavow the contest. I'll scuttle it.
Simmer down. You're raising your blood pressure.
This apathy in you, this idiotic calm, with two murders crying out for justice? Mr. Craig, I find you offensive.
And I find you guilty.
What's that?
Guilty.
What nonsense is this?
You just convicted yourself. 2 murders, you said. Cleo Odell is 1. Who's number 2?
Why, Vincent Cornell.
Correct. But only the murderer could know that.
Only the murderer?
There's been no advertising of Cornell's fate. I've got him in a clothes closet. His death is a secret 2 people share, me and the killer. That's you. You can clam up or you can talk. Whatever your motive was, it can wait. I can wait. But you're licked. 2 murders. You did them both.
Yes. I did them both. Cleo Odell, because she knew me when we met, she recognized me. An ugly and untalented person. I was forced to see that she won our contest. And after victory, I knew there'd be other blackmail, other tribute to pay. If I didn't dispose of her first.
What did Cleo have on you?
An unsolved murder. In the long ago past. 17 years ago. My wife, I'd struck her fatally in the heat of a quarrel. I'd fled, left town, and later resumed my life elsewhere. Here in New York with a new name. Cleo Odell was a Janet Tyler, in her teens then. The daughter of a next-door neighbor in our town.
Ironic twist. Cleo showing up in your contest 17 years later. You're escaping the police in all that time, but running afoul of Cleo.
My retribution. I'd have to pay for my crime sometime, I knew. I always knew.
Cornell. Why did he have to die?
Cornell could tell you that I had influenced him to favor Cleo. You see, I'd agreed to blackmail before.
Before you decided that the only good blackmailer was a dead blackmailer.
Yes. I wasn't at first aware of the lady's avarice. That I would be her captive forever.
Case solved. You're under arrest for murder. Murder new and old. Now, who was it who said, your sins will find you out?
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, Murder by Threes, was written by John Robert.
Hello, Craig speaking.
I wanted to read you my leave for tomorrow's column. At the door. Hold the line, Barrie, while I see who it is.
Don't answer that way. Stay with the door. Stay with the door. Don't answer that
Oh. You, look, I told you it's no use coming here. You're just wasting your time. My life's too short. Oh.
By transcription, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator, starring William Gargan.
Barrie Craig speaking. It was one of those nights. I was sitting in my office with my feet hooked on the corner of my desk, trying to whip up some enthusiasm over an assignment to bodyguard a couple of tin coffee pots at a Long Island wedding when the telephone rang. I let it ring a few times before I reached out and snagged it off its hook. After all, when they're that anxious, they can be mighty worthwhile. Yeah, who's this?
Al White from the Chronicle. Remember me?
Oh, Al White, sure. How's the gossip column racket these days?
Warming up. I got a chore for you.
I'll bet you have.
Meaning what?
I've been reading that column of yours. Those cracks you've been making about Larry Slade throwing the big fight, they can't have made him very happy. I hear he's looking for you.
Yeah, so do I. I need a bodyguard.
You keep printing that Slade took a dive, and you're more likely to need an undertaker.
I was right about it, wasn't I? I even called around.
Sometimes there's something better to be than right.
Such as?
Alive. Something you're not likely to be if you keep needling Slade. He's big and sensitive.
My heart bleeds for him. Look, do you want this job or not?
All right, Al. Where do I start guarding the body?
The Casa Daily Bar. Midnight.
It wasn't the kind of case I'd like, but a private detective is like a doctor or a lawyer. He can't always pick and choose. Anyway, a few minutes short of midnight, I parked the car outside the Casa Daily. It was an old white-frame building that Ace Daly had converted into a plush boob trap. One of those joints where if they don't get your roll with the fancy prices at the bar, they got back rooms all rigged up with roulette wheels and crap tables where they do. I was holding down the bar with an elbow, squinting through the fog of blue-gray smoke when my client, Al White, walked in.
Waiting long?
Not very.
Seen Ace Daly?
Yeah, he went in the game room a little while ago.
Larry Slade with him?
Champ? No, why?
Just a hunch. He'll be here, too, before the night's over. Daly's in the game room now, huh?
Why the interest in Ace Daly? I thought you were after Slade's hide.
Maybe I'm after both of them.
You think Ace had a hand in fixing that fight?
Yeah, and tonight I'm looking for proof. Any objection?
Sure skin, if you like to wear it with holes in it.
That's what I'm paying you to prevent.
Maybe we better make this one cash in advance.
Can't you trust me?
Oh, sure. I just don't want to have to go to the trouble of suing your estate to get my money.
Oh, very funny.
Hey, wait a minute. You must read tea leaves.
Huh?
Don't look now, but your old friend, the ex-champ, just came in.
Is he heading this way?
No, he's going on through into the gaming room.
Good.
What's good about it?
I had a tip Slade would be showing up for the payoff tonight. This settles it. He dumped the fight, and Daly paid him to do it.
You still haven't got any proof of a payoff.
With a little luck, we might even get that.
What are you going to do, follow Slade in?
Not yet. Give him a minute or two head start. He won't go direct to Daly's office. He'll probably waste a couple of minutes looking around in the gaming room, just to make sure he isn't being followed. Now, if we time it right, we may catch him in the act. And if we do, I'll have the biggest story of the year.
I only hope you live to write it.
I'll write it. Don't you worry about me.
All right, then. I'll worry about me. I only hope that I live to read it. We stayed at the bar, finished our drink, and listened while a tinny 5-piece combo did unmentionable things to a popular ballad. Then Al White dropped a handful of silver on the bar and nodded he was ready. I led the way out of the bar to the disguised entrance of the roulette room. The door was presided over by a tuxedoed man with a broken nose. We stepped into a small vestibule, waited while he closed the door behind us. Then another door opened, and we stepped into the game room. A low buzz of conversation, spiced with the click of roulette balls, rolled out toward us. A dozen or more people were huddled around a huge roulette layout in the center. On the far side, a hot crap game was in session. Either Ace or Slade was in sight, so we ambled past the bank of slot machines toward a door marked private. From behind it, we could hear the sound of someone laughing.
Ready? All right. Let's go.
May your marriage be as happy as you are beautiful, my dear.
Hold it, Judge. We got company. Something just crawled out of the woodwork.
Something was wrong. Instead of a payoff, it looked like a party. Lifting a champagne glass with Ace Daly and Slade was the most gorgeous redhead I'd ever seen. And a tall, distinguished, white-haired man was just proposing a toast. It wasn't what we'd figured to find. But Al White didn't let that stop him. He walked right in like the life of the party. Or maybe the death of it.
Hello, Larry. Evening, folks.
I've been looking for you, White. I'm going to knock you...
Easy, chap, easy. My client doesn't like to be crowded.
Make it easy on yourself, and you keep at it.
Cut it out, champ.
He's got it coming. I'm going to... Okay. Okay, Ace.
You, White. On your way.
Daly, you could lose a lot of customers talking to them that way.
I didn't send for you. Get out.
Ace, who is this man?
Yeah, Ace. Why don't you introduce us? I'm Al White, Miss Adair. I write a column for the Chronicle.
How do you know my name?
Recognizing faces is part of my business. And how are you, Judge Adair? I thought you and Ace Daly were old political enemies. How nice to see that you've gotten together.
I think perhaps you'd better excuse us, Ace. Louise and I...
Sit down, Judge. I'll take care of White. He's just about to leave.
Don't mind if I do, now. You see, I came here looking for a story in the Fight Fix the other night. Oh, it's small potatoes compared to a political fix.
What does he mean, Ace?
You and Ace, the happy couple.
Well, really...
And maybe if Ace helps the judge to get reelected, he can claim the bride as his reward. What a story.
Ace, he mustn't print that. Not before election. He'd ruin everything.
Don't worry,
Why,
Judge. He's not printing anything.
That's where you're wrong. I'm not only printing it, but I'm going to do a feature piece on it.
Don't push your luck too far. You're still healthy because nothing will happen to you in my place. Providing you're out of it in 5 minutes.
Just let me take him, Ace. Let me take
Without a
him.
rehearsal, champ? I thought you always rehearsed your fight.
Why, you little rat, I'll kill you at the last thing
Look,
I...
champ, I don't have my hand in my pocket because it's cold. I told you the guy's my client.
Sit down, champ. As for you, Craig, put up the heater.
Ace, you've got to stop him. He mustn't print that. It would ruin us, all of us.
Don't worry, Louise. If he so much as hints at it in that rag of his, I'll not only be on the line of people who want to kill him, I'll be at the head of it.
As we weren't in any position to cop any popularity prizes at the moment, there didn't seem to be much point in hanging around the Casa Daily. We got out with about 2 minutes left of the head start Ace had given us. White insisted that I drop him off at the combination office and apartment where he worked, so I locked him in for the night, then headed for my own apartment and some long-delayed shut-eye. I didn't need anybody to rock me to sleep, as I was practically snoring by the time my head hit the pillow. So when the phone started to dance off its stand a couple of hours later, it took me a few minutes to locate it. Oh, stand still, will you? Yeah?
Al White.
What time is it?
Oh, about 4:30.
Oh, it's the middle of the night.
Not for me. These are my office hours. Just finishing up tomorrow's column. I want to read you an item.
I can wait until tomorrow to read it. Hey, what's that?
Oh, the doorbell. Who is it? Hold the line a minute.
White, don't answer that. White, stay away from that. White! White! Without stopping to think twice, I knew that whoever was paying that late call to Al White carried a peculiar calling card engraved in lead. I started dressing, made par for the course, and was headed for a cab in less than 6 minutes. A police cruiser outside of Al White's apartment house told me somebody else had heard the shots. When I finally got to his door, it was opened by Sergeant Marty Moran of Homicide.
Well, I might have known. What are you doing here?
White was my client.
Was?
Don't let's get cute, Marty. I was talking to him on the phone when he got us.
Oh, that accounts for the phone being off the hook.
Do I get in?
I suppose so. What were you talking about when it happened?
He wanted to read me an item out of tomorrow's column.
Column? You didn't find any column, just a few blank sheets in the typewriter, no column. Yeah, there he is. We haven't moved him yet. Yeah, me hasn't gotten here.
Got it in the back, huh?
All 5 of them.
Small caliber gun. 32 or less, I'd say.
Big enough to do the job.
Yeah. And you said there was no trace of a column?
No, just a few blank sheets of paper in his typewriter.
All right to handle?
Yeah, I guess so. Barrie, what's on your mind?
Just a hunch. I'm wondering if Al White had the same habit most newspaper boys have of jamming 2 or 3 sheets into their machine at a time.
Gee, you got something there. If he did, we may be able to bring out the impression on the second sheet.
Well, that's worth a try.
There should be some dusting powder in the lab kit. Yeah, here's some. Let's have that second sheet.
Here you are.
Yeah, think that's enough dusting powder on it? Yeah, a little more, maybe. Shake it around. Well, what do you know? It worked.
Can you read it, Sergeant?
I think so. First, let's blow off the excess.
Yep, there you are. Clear as a carbon copy.
Take your vows later. Uh-oh. Here it is. Listen. The mob is giggling over Ace Daly's payoff if the election goes right. Now, instead of fixing fights for sugar, the Ace is fixing elections for honey.
Ace Daly in this?
Yeah. He told White that if that item appeared, he'd kill him.
Well, why didn't you say so? That makes it easy. We put out a pickup on Ace, and we got it made.
Better pick up Larry Slade, too, Marty.
The champ?
Yeah, he got into the act, too. He promised to kill White if he mentioned fixed fights again in his column.
Oh, fine. First I have no suspects, now I've got more than I have teeth of my own. How many other characters promised to make this creep a prospect for a headstone?
Offhand, I don't recall, but as I think of them, I'll keep you informed, Marty. I got away from Sergeant Moran as soon as I could. He was yelling pickup orders into the phone as I closed the door behind me. On the street, I grabbed a cab, told the cabbie to double back up a couple of streets to make sure there was no police trail on me, then gave the driver the address of the Adair home. It was an old converted brownstone house with a large brass knocker. Through the glass door, I saw the commoded figure of Louise Adair. Over her shoulder on the stairway, I could see her father, his white hair shining in the gloom.
What do you want?
I'd like to see you for a few minutes, Miss Adair.
Now? What about?
Murder.
Murder?
Yes, Al White, the columnist, a few hours ago.
I see. Perhaps you'd better come in.
What is it, Louise?
You go on to bed, Dad. This, gentleman wants to ask me a few questions.
Maybe your father ought to sit in on this.
Leave my father out of it.
Nonsense, Louise. Now, what's this all about?
Al White, the columnist you met last night at Ace Daly's, is dead. Murdered.
And this, gentleman, being a detective, has it figured out that Ace did it?
I didn't say that, Miss Adair. I said he had a motive. So did a lot of other people. You, for instance, or your father.
Ah.
Why not? If White printed that story about you and Ace, it might have cost your father the election. And it certainly wouldn't help your social standing.
Why, that's absurd. Ace and I were merely waiting for the proper time to announce our engagement.
After the election, I suppose, when it wouldn't be so embarrassing?
I can't have you making insinuations like that. I must ask you to leave.
Suit yourself, Judge. I was just trying to make it easy on you. White was my client.
And he's dead now.
Maybe so. But when a guy hires me to see that nothing happens to him and something does, I want the guy that made it happen.
But don't you see, we'll get dragged into it. The scandal will ruin Dad's chances of re-election.
That's unfair, Louise. How can we help?
Well, you can give me a fill-in on the time set-up last night. What time did you leave the Casa Daily?
About 4. We came home and went right to bed.
4, huh? That would give Ace plenty of time to do the job. Was the champ there when you left?
Mr. Slade? No, he left before we did. His lady friend dances in one of the clubs.
Lily DeVore.
If you can call it dancing.
You saw her last night, huh? That might be his out.
My father and I'd like to get some sleep. If you have any more questions, would you mind if we discuss them later in some more suitable time and place?
All right. Let's say 4 o'clock this afternoon in my office. Meanwhile, I think I'll drop by the Carteret Arms and have a chat with Lily DeVore. The Carteret Arms was a big, expensive-looking pile of rocks in the West 50s. By the time I got there, a heavy drizzle had started, and it didn't pep me up any to learn that Millie hadn't gotten home yet. I found a soggy cigarette in my jacket pocket, got it burning, and settled back to wait. The gleaming wet face of a jeweler's clock across the street said 10 after 2 when a cab skidded to a stop at the curb. Lily DeVore jumped out, ran for the protection of the lobby. I gave her 10 minutes to get settled, then crossed over. It took a 2-spot and a lot of fast talk to get by unannounced. The 2-spot was more effective than the talk. Anyway, I got up to 4D and knocked.
Yeah?
Message for Miss DeVore.
Coming. Okay, Buster, let's have... Say, what is this?
I want a little talk with you.
Get your foot out of that door.
Nice of you to ask me in.
You mean I had a choice? Look, I don't know what's on your mind, but you don't...
Don't be so modest, Lily. You know you're irresistible.
Yeah. And I know something else, too. You're liable to be unconscious when the champ hears about this.
I make it a policy never to worry unnecessarily.
And I make it a policy never to entertain strange men without a warrant.
That goes double for private cops. Outside.
Okay. I just thought I'd help keep your champ out of the hot seat. But if that's the way you feel about it...
Look, you can't pin that killing on Larry Slade. You know he didn't do it.
That's not what the police think. Where is he, Lily?
I don't know. Hey, where do you think you're going?
Oh, just to have a look around.
Get out of here and leave me alone.
What's in there? I thought I heard something. Oh, mice, no doubt.
That's just a closet. Stay away from it. Stay away, I tell you.
As I moved Lily from in front of the closet door, I turned my back for a second. The door swung open behind me. I heard rather than saw the blow that knocked me to my knees. In that moment, the man in the closet made a break for it. He headed across the room for the bedroom door beyond. I was a little groggy, but I managed to follow him. By the time I got to the bedroom, I heard him go through the window to the fire escape beyond. I followed, stuck my head out. He snapped a shot at me from below. Gouged a chunk of windowsill a foot or so from my head. I pulled back fast. I wasn't that curious. Lily was still in the living room when I walked back. Okay, baby. Playtime is over. I lose my boyish smile when people use my skull for target practice. Who was it?
I don't know. A prowler, I guess.
If it was Slade, why did he run? You can alibi him for last night, can't you?
What? Sure.
Or can you?
Of course I can. We were together all morning.
He left Daly's before 4. When did he get to your place?
About 4. We left the club together, and then we...
You're lying, Lily, aren't you?
No!
If you are, I can check up at the club. You might as well admit it now.
Oh, all right. The director called a rehearsal on next week's show. Slade got bored and walked out on it about 4:15. We worked through.
In other words, he had time to knock off White. If he didn't do it, then why was he trying to hide here in your closet?
Slade wasn't in that closet.
Who was?
I don't know.
Who was it, Lily?
Oh, what's the use? Why should I cover for him? It was Ace Daly.
What was he doing here?
Same as you, looking for the champ.
To help him fix an alibi?
Slade doesn't need an alibi. He didn't do anything. Why don't you leave him alone?
Maybe I can help him. Where is he, Lily?
I told you I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you if I did.
That's what I thought. Just the same, if you want to see him get a break, you get to him and tell him to get to me. I didn't have long to wait. I just gotten back to the 4 walls and desk I laughingly call my office, shuffled the 2 ads and rent bill that represented my mail, and lit a cigarette when the phone rang. Hello?
Larry Slade. I hear you want to see me. What about?
I don't do business over the phone. Come in and...
Yeah, and walk right into a police stakeout?
Okay, so I'll come to see you. Where?
If it's a plant, you'll never walk away from it.
Where?
The end of Pier 6, East River. Make it 3:30 sharp.
I'll be there.
And come alone. Because if you don't, you'll have plenty of company when you leave. They'll be carrying you.
Pier 6 was a deserted strip that stretched out into the murky water of East River for a quarter of a mile. Anybody walking to the end would be visible for minutes before he reached the end, setting him up as a perfect target. The goose pimples and icicles running down my spine were caused by the cold wind, I think. The rain hadn't let up, and I was drenched by the time I reached the end of the pier. Larry Slade stepped from behind an old rotting shack that had been a watchman's shanty. He looked bigger than a Brahma bull and twice as nasty. Hello, champ.
What do you want?
The one who killed Al White. The cops think maybe you did.
I can read.
I don't think you did.
That's nice. So?
Give yourself up. I don't want you to take the fall for the killer if you didn't do it.
I don't take any falls for nobody.
You're set up for one right now and don't know it.
You're lying.
Why should I? Ace Daly's the only one got anything to gain by lying.
He wouldn't cross me.
Not unless he needed a fall guy, and he does.
Why don't you tell him that? Hey, Ace.
Busy little man, aren't you, Craig? I tried to get around, only this time I didn't get around fast enough. Looks like you beat me to it, Ace.
Looks like I did.
He thinks you're trying to pin the murder on me, Ace.
Now, why would I want to do that, Larry? Why would I want to frame the guy who's giving me my alibi?
Your alibi? He hasn't even got one for himself. Not after he left Lily DeVore last night.
Oh, yes, he has. Larry came back to the Casa Daily. We were both there together at 4:30 this morning. Now, what do you say to that?
You've had time to cook up a nice little story, haven't you? But coming from the two principal suspects, I doubt if the police will take your word for it. You'll have to think of something better than that to prove you were really there.
Don't worry. We can. After he got home, Judge Adair called me up to talk things over.
That's funny. The judge didn't mention it to me. But then maybe you haven't had a chance to give him his briefing yet.
Don't worry, Craig. He'll back us up.
Will he, Ace? Aren't you forgetting something?
What?
You can't help him now. When the story of your little deal gets out and the papers tie it in with this murder, your support would be the kiss of death. His only chance of re-election now is to wash his hands of you as fast as he can and try to make hay on the other side.
Now, wait a minute.
Sorry, Ace, but I gotta go see the judge. I'd kind of like to hear what he has to say before he's had any coaching.
Stop him, Slade.
What do you want me to do?
You're the champ. Figure it out for yourself.
Barrie Slade grinned, licked his lips. He hunched his left shoulder a bit, and I saw the punch start somewhere near the tip of his shoe, but I couldn't get my jaw out of the way fast enough. It landed like a ton of bricks, and the pier came up and slapped me in the face. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been minutes, probably. It was only seconds. Both Ace and Slade were gone when I opened my eyes. I couldn't find it in my heart to regret their going. All I could do was hope that they were going to the wrong place if they wanted to locate Judge Adair. I managed to get a cab and gave the driver my office address. When I got there, two people were at my door trying the knob. Even in the semi-gloom, I had no difficulty making out the sleek lines of Louise Adair as one. The other was her father. Looking for me?
Oh.
I thought you'd forgotten our 4 o'clock appointment. I've thought of something you should know.
Good. Let's go inside where we can talk. Make yourselves comfortable.
I suppose we really should have told the police that Dad preferred to talk to you first.
Well, let's have it.
I think I know who killed your client.
I thought you might. Judge Adair, after you and your daughter got home this morning, did you phone the Casa Daily?
Why, how did you know about that?
Then you did make the call.
Why, yes, about 4:30.
Well, there goes the old ball game. I thought that Ace was lying.
But Ace wasn't there. No one answered the phone.
He didn't? Why didn't you tell me that this morning?
But Dad didn't want to get involved. It would cost him the election.
Cost a man his life.
I finally realized too late. When Daly tried to reach me today...
I see I got here just in time.
Ace!
No, don't shoot, Daly. I won't tell anything. Don't...
Boy, you dirty double-crossing old buzzard.
He's got a gun, Dad!
When the smoke cleared, Ace Daly was sprawled in my doorway. Louise Adair was doing a good job of trying to swallow her fist. The judge stood dazed, staring down at an old .22 target pistol that he still held in his hand. I managed to pin my eyeballs back in their sockets long enough to walk over to Ace. At that moment, the door to my office burst open, and Sergeant Marty Moran came tearing in.
What's going on here? Holy cow, Ace Daly. Who did it?
I'm afraid I did, Sergeant.
It was self-defense. Daly was going to kill both of us. Mr.
Judge shot him, all right.
Why should Daly want to kill you, Judge?
He wanted to keep me quiet. I knew that he'd killed Mr. White.
You were taking an awful chance going up against a pro like Daly with that pea shooter.
I couldn't keep quiet and see him get away with murder. Even if it does cost me the election, I couldn't do it.
Cost you the election? You kidding? You come out of this mess a hero. Delivered a killer all wrapped up. Just too bad Ace Daly didn't kill White.
Didn't kill him?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you better translate that for me, too, Barrie.
Daly couldn't have killed White. I was talking to White when the killer knocked. He got up and let him into the apartment.
So?
He wouldn't hire me to hold his hand while he was talking to Daly in a public place, then let him into his apartment.
But Ace could have disguised his voice.
Won't wash, baby. White was shot in the back. That means he opened the door to the killer, then turned to lead the way into the apartment. He never would have turned his back on Daly.
In that case, I have a little surprise for you. Ryan, bring Slade in. We picked up Slade waiting outside in Daly's car.
Ace? Who did it? I'm afraid I did, Mr. Slade. I thought he killed White.
Which leaves us only one logical suspect.
Oh, I get it. I'm supposed to be the fall guy, eh? Why, you two-bit shameless, I'm going to let you have it.
Right in the whiskers. You KO'd the champ.
I owed him, that's it. Holy cow, so I did. Hey, he didn't throw that fight. He's got a glass jaw.
Well, I'll get him out of here and booked.
He didn't kill White either. He never would have used a gun. He'd get a bigger charge out of beating him to a pulp.
Well, if neither of them did kill White, who...
You did, Judge.
What?
And that wasn't self-defense when you shot Ace Daly in my office. It was murder.
That's fantastic. Why should my father kill either of them?
Because White was getting set to break a story that would have blasted your father's chances. Ace knew your father killed him and covered him for your sake. But your father knew when the heat was on, Daly would throw him to the wolves.
But to go up against Daly with a .22...
Ace was a sitting duck. The judge shot him before he knew he was being double-crossed, using me as a witness that it was self-defense.
Now, see here. This is ridiculous. I was in bed when White was killed.
Sorry, Judge. I went to your house an hour or more after the killing. You were supposed to be in bed, but your hair wasn't even mussed.
Oh, I won't listen to these lies. Tell them, Dad. Tell them.
What's the use, Louise? I took a long chance and lost. I killed them.
Well, they can't prove a thing.
Yes, they can, now that they know the story. I left too many traces.
Why did you kill White, Judge?
I had to. My only hope of escaping prosecution for malfeasance was to be re-elected to cover what I had done during my last term. I would have done anything to be re-elected. Even come to blows with a thug like Daly.
Don't talk, Dad. They can't prove a thing.
It's no use, my dear. I'm ready to make a full statement.
Okay, boys, take the judge out. We'll book him later. For murder, I guess. Barrie? Well, we're waiting for the medical examiner. Tell me...
Not now, Marty. I've got an important date.
Anybody I know?
Lily DeVore.
You crazy? That's the champ's girl. He's plenty jealous.
Plenty jealous, but I just found out he's got a glass jaw. So long, Marty. So long, folks. See you next week.
Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator, starring William Gargan. Next week, another exciting transcribed story starring America's #1 detective, William Gargan, as Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator. Tonight's script was written by Frank Kane and featured Santos Ortega as Ace Daly. Edward King directed. Your announcer is Don Pardo. All names and places mentioned in this program are fictitious, and any resemblance to actual persons living or dead is purely coincidental. By transcription, Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator, starring William Gargan.
Barrie Craig speaking. Detectives come in three sizes. City cops, big agencies, and guys like me with a small office and an insurance company retainer to pay the rent. Cops don't have to worry about getting cases, and the big agencies have branches from here to Shanghai. But from where I sit, you never can tell where your next case will come from. Last week, it started with my old brown suit. I'd been on a bodyguard case, and the suit looked as if I'd been sleeping in it for a week. There was a good reason for that. I had. I tucked it under one elbow and ducked into George the tailor's. George had a king-size shoebox in the basement of my office building.
Morning, Mr. Craig.
Hi, George. What can you do with this suit?
If you like herringbone handkerchiefs, I could maybe salvage enough goods.
All right, so I'm not Adolphe Monju. How about it? Tuesday?
With the spots out, Thursday.
Okay, Thursday.
Oh, say, Mr. Craig, I wanted to ask you. I've got a problem.
Well, what is it, George? Got a pair of plaid slacks with no coat to match?
No. I'm serious. My wife says, George, you go to the police. But she wasn't here when that man came.
What man? What's the pitch, George?
The man said I need protection.
Shakedown, huh?
The man said I've got to pay $50 a week to stay open. He says, George, you wouldn't want trouble. Maybe a bottle of acid spilled on your racks.
Did you pay him?
Well, I didn't have $50. I told him to get out. Now I'm scared, Mr. Craig. Look, you're a detective. I want to hire you. You protect me.
That won't work, George. Stopping a protection racket is a big operation. You need 24-hour guards, a whole setup to protect all the shop owners.
Well, I could pay in installments.
You've already paid for protection, George, your taxes. You better call in the cops. They're the only ones who can swing it.
Oh, no. He said they'd beat me up. Maybe kill me.
Look, George, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll drop in at headquarters tomorrow and bend the lieutenant's ear. He'll give orders for a cop from the precinct to look after you. And start the ball rolling to find out who's behind this racket.
Will you really do that for me, Mr. Craig?
Sure. After all, I wouldn't want anything to happen to my brown suit. George disappeared in a spritz of steam, and I headed home. I put in a call to Lieutenant Edwards. He was out, so I left a message that I'd call in the morning. I was propped up in bed eating pretzels, reading a medium hard-boiled private eye opus, wondering where he found all the beautiful blondes with the low-cut problems when the phone rang. I left the intrepid sleuth under a falling blackjack and stretched for the receiver. Craig speaking.
Mr. Craig, you've got to come quick.
George?
You've got to come down right away, Mr. Craig, please. Please.
What's up? Somebody there? Hello, George. George! Hello, George! I slid into my shoes and took off across town. When I hit the pavement outside of George's shop, I had company. A hook and ladder, 2 pump engines, and a crowd of fire buffs who traveled to Denver to see a lit can of sterno. The smoke was pouring out of the cellar as I muscled my way through the police lines and ran into Lieutenant Edwards.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Craig? A cop or a fireman?
I'll take a rain check on the laugh, Lieutenant. What are you doing here?
Just holding back the crowd. If you ask me, all these fire buffs are nuts.
Anybody know what started the fire?
Doubt it. Cleaners' stores go up like birthday candles all the time.
What does George say?
Who?
George, the tailor. He runs the shop.
Probably at home playing three-handed stuss.
No. He lives in back of the shop. He called me from here. You sure he isn't around?
Haven't seen him. Fire boys said the joint was clean.
Maybe. We better find out.
Hey, where you going?
Inside. It's chilly out here. I grabbed a rubber Chesterfield from the hook and ladder and headed inside. The first flash had died down, and the shop was burning nicely at the proper temperature for browning a turkey quickly. Under the fireman's coat, I was beginning to baste in my own juice as I pushed into the back room. I found what I was looking for under the counter, George the tailor, dead. I carried him outside and knocked off a few minutes to pump the smoke out of my lungs and siphon a little oxygen in.
You all right, Barrie?
You know where I can get a new pair of eyelashes?
Craig, what are you doing sightseeing at a fire at this hour of the night? And how did you know that guy was in there?
I told you, Lieutenant. George called me. He was up against the protection grift. He tried to hire me. I told him I'd have you look into it.
Well?
It's too late for a referral now.
Yeah? Well, it looks like it's my baby now. You better give me the whole shooting match to date.
I have. That's all I've got. Anything turned up on your end? Any other complaints of a protection shakedown?
Not a mutter. You're lucky you're out of it.
I'm not. I haven't welched on a client yet, and as far as I'm concerned, George was my client.
Well, it's a good, clean pro job anyway. Tough to prove arson.
Maybe not. I found this wedged under George.
Plastic?
Celluloid scrap. Comes in real handy. Stick a plumber's candle in a pile of it, and by the time it blazes up, the mechanic is clear to Nutley, New Jersey to establish his alibi.
Celluloid, huh? Well, then I'd better make my call in. Arson.
Yeah, and while you've got the precinct on the wire, just casually mention murder. The bus from Bellevue rolled up, and they loaded George's body in the back. I watched it pull away. Then a hand fell on my shoulder. I turned around slow and found a pair of thick eyeglasses staring right through me.
Mr. Craig, I'm Alfred Whittington.
Oh, look out for the lapel. This has just become my only suit.
You're the confidential investigator, aren't you?
I've got a license.
I want to hire you.
I pay rent on an office that's open during business hours. If you don't mind, right now I'm tired and a little burnt around the edges.
I overheard your conversation with Lieutenant Edwards.
You'll get your ear pinched in a keyhole that way.
I'd like to talk to you, Craig. Perhaps my apartment?
Perhaps not.
Would it interest you if I told you I want to retain a detective to find out who killed George the tailor?
Oh? All right, Mr. Whittington, as you say. Let's go to your apartment. We rode uptown in the caddy that had to bend to get around corners. The name clicked as we crossed 42nd Street. Alfred P. Whittington. He ran the newspaper that did the big crime series this year. They got Stretch Longo to talk and almost pinned half a dozen rackets on the coattails of Herman Jess, the big operator. Of course, they had to put Longo together with Scotch tape for the funeral, but it made nice reading, and Herman Jess had left town until it all blew over. Whittington's apartment was in the penthouse on top of the newspaper building. We sailed up in a private lift and waded through the nap to his library. It was the kind of a room you see behind the iron gray hair and the whiskey ads. Whittington was a little cozy about speaking his piece, so we discussed interior decoration till he got ready to make the plunge.
I had this room specially designed for my hobbies.
Oh, looks like you make a hobby of hobbies. Guns, original oil paintings, and that fish tank is big enough for a stunted whale.
Oh, that isn't all. I've got movie editing equipment in those cabinets, color slide projector. I'm very interested in photography.
All you need is an erector set. Look, Mr. Whittington, I'm not writing an article for House Beautiful magazine.
Of course, I just like to get to know a man before I talk business.
With me, it's the other way around, so let's have it.
You know, of course, the paper's been running a series on crime in the city. The board of directors is very anxious to continue. They've so instructed me.
Where do I fit in?
I heard you say you were going to work on this protection racket.
That's right.
Do you still intend to?
Up to the top.
Good. We can help each other, Craig. I want to retain you on behalf of the paper.
What happened to your reporters? Measles?
Contrary to popular fiction, reporters aren't trained as detectives. You are.
What do you want?
Whatever you can get. Of course, I want reports direct to me, strictly confidential.
That comes with the price of the entree.
Our legal staff will have to go over everything before we print it. And nobody's to know you're working for me.
Bashful?
Discreet. The staff here would feel I didn't have confidence in them.
Don't you?
When I want a job done right, I go to a professional. I want the truth, no matter whom it involves. But I want the story exclusive, as it develops, step by step.
All right. Then you're my second client, because George the tailor comes first. Next morning, I went down to the insurance company that pays me that nice, steady retainer, rain or shine. I waded through the acre of desks in the outer office and rapped on the glass door marked Arthur B. Goldsmith. Art was the company expert on fires. He knew enough angles on arson to burn out an asbestos mine. I planted the scrap of celluloid I found under George the tailor on his desk and flipped over a few questions.
No soap, Barrie. Celluloid is standard equipment.
It doesn't point to anybody?
It'd be like asking which ball player uses a bat. The mechanic plants a plumber's candle in the celluloid scrap, down she burns, and then they can file the insurance claim in the morning.
Much doing these days?
Average. Not like in the Depression. In 33, the only way to make a profit was burn your own place down every 6 months.
Art, if you wanted to hire the best, money no object, who would you get to start a nice, cozy conflagration?
Pro job?
Major League.
Let's see. Mike DiGiorno's in Elmira. Maybe Irving Turkle, celluloid Harry Bush. I'll give you a list, maybe 10 men.
Thanks, Art.
The long shot. Got something else?
Not yet, but if you rake a red-headed clinker out of the next fire, that's me. I started checking down Art's list. It was like looking for the clams in a bowl of cheap chowder. 2 of them were at peace in the lower bay, hugging a load of bricks. I found Irving Turkle on Center Street, right opposite police headquarters, pushing a baby carriage full of hot charcoal and roasted chestnuts.
Hot roasted chestnuts. All hot.
Dime's worth, Turkle.
Who are you?
Barrie Craig. Art Goldsmith at Federal Indemnity put me on you.
Oh, yeah. Why, I got a lot of respect for Mr. Goldsmith. A lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your chestnuts.
Thanks.
Look out for worms.
Yeah, I will. How's business, Turkle?
You push ice cream, turns cold. Switch to chestnuts, you could fry an egg on the sidewalk.
Tough, huh?
My worst enemy should have it better.
You haven't been roasting anything besides chestnuts lately?
Like what?
Like tailor shops?
Mr. Craig, I'm telling you honest, I ain't so much as set fire to a cigarette since the last time I got sprung.
Sure?
Look, I ain't so young no more. You could get pneumonia standing out here, but inside those cell blocks, it ain't so nice neither. I ought to know. I've been in maybe 18 years since I was 13. Warwick, Elmira, Clinton, I've been them all. Enough already. I made up my mind I want to die on the outside.
Could you use 5, Turkle?
You're kidding.
I want to find a mechanic who did a job on the west side yesterday.
A tailor shop?
You know about it?
I read it in the paper.
I got a list from Art Goldsmith. Save me some time, and it's worth a fin.
Mr. Goldsmith, I shouldn't ought to put me on the list. I retired. I wouldn't...
How about the rest of them?
Well, I heard somebody the other day saying Harry Bush made a good connection.
Where can I find him?
Look, Mr. Craig, I'm on my own now. There wouldn't nobody even feel bad if I got took.
I'll cover you, Turkle.
All right. Harry Bush has got a drop in Long Island City. Easy glide roller skating rink.
All right, Turkle. Thanks a lot.
You tell Mr. Goldsmith I'm retired. You tell him that. I got a lot of respect for Mr. Goldsmith. Excuse me, I got to get back to work. Chestnuts? Hot roasted chestnuts?
The Easy Glide roller skating rink was in a factory district across the river in Queens. It was an oversized barn with high school kids on wheels where the cows should be. I managed to collide with a redhead in a turtleneck sweater and one of those velvet skating skirts that looked like the paper panties on a lamb chop. And she told me where to look for Harry Bush. There was a sign on the door that said manager, keep out, but I decided to overlook it.
Who's that?
Hello, Harry.
If you want to rent skates, you're in the wrong pew.
Mind if I smoke?
Who are you?
We got a light, a match, maybe a plumber's candle?
What are you, cop?
Private license, Barrie Craig. It's a nice drop you've got here, Harry.
What are you talking about? I'm the manager of this.
Been to any good fires lately?
What would I be doing at a fire?
Lighting it. They say around town, celluloid Harry Bush is working again. You're in the protection racket up to your pointy ears.
You're crazy, Craig. I haven't been near a tailor shop.
Yeah? I didn't mention any names, Harry. I just said protection. How did you happen to think of tailor shops?
I read about it in this morning's paper.
They're still burning people for murder in this state, Harry. But then you won't mind. You like fire.
I wouldn't even get booked. Listen, Craig, I don't care what you think. It ain't going to do you no good.
Somebody covering for you, Harry?
What do you think?
Who is it?
Why don't you find out?
Maybe I will. So long, fireflies. Outside, I parked my shoulders against the wall just around the corner and went into a trance. I didn't have long to wait. Celluloid Harry came bouncing out in less than 5 minutes and headed for town. I stuck with him like bubblegum till he ducked into a doorway in the East 60s. I gave him a running start, then I waltzed in time to see the indicator on the elevator hit 5. I ran a finger down the directory. There were only 2 officers on 5. Dr. Martin Produlik, DDS, and an outfit named Star Enterprises that could stand for anything. I grabbed the elevator on the next bounce and punched the button marked 5. I put my shoulder to the door marked Star Enterprises and heaved.
What? What's the idea?
Well, Herman Jess, I presume. I didn't know you were back.
Who the devil are you?
Where's Celluloid Harry?
Who?
The little spark plug. He came up here.
Well, I have enough trouble without guessing games. Who are you?
Barrie Craig.
You're not police?
Private.
Now, you can't break in here like this. I'm not a well man. I should be in Florida right now.
What's keeping you?
Well, that's my business.
Yeah, I know about your business. You're really a public benefactor, Herman. Where would a kid get a reefer without you, huh?
Yes, now look. The doctor said I shouldn't get excited now.
That must be a handicap in running your racket.
I'm not in rackets anymore. I'm retired.
What makes you think I'm going to believe that?
Now, does it look like I'm running a business here?
Well, no, but...
I've got no desk, no files, not even a telephone. Now, the doctor says I've got to have absolute quiet.
All right, then. So tell me where Celluloid Harry is, and I'll stop disturbing the peace.
Now look, Craig. You want somebody named Harry. I haven't got him. There's only one door here, and you came through it. Now, take a quick look in the closet and walk out of here. My heart can take just so much.
I'll take you up on that, Jess. Not even a bone.
Now, kindly leave.
Okay, Jess. But if you haven't quit the rackets, I'm warning you now. I'm after the mechanic that burned George the tailor and the man who bought him. Clear up to the top. Put that in your blood pressure and smoke it. I started for the door with a sinking feeling that I was a sucker in a new-style shell game. Celluloid Harry had to be in Jess's office. Unless he was under the rug, I couldn't see him. The elevator door was just sliding closed as I reached it. I got a quick shot of a pretty picture. Celluloid Harry with his finger on the first floor button. The door slammed, and I stared at the arrow as it swung around. It didn't add up. It wasn't in Jess's office. The only other room on the floor was the dentist. decided to develop a toothache.
Can I help you?
That's my tooth. This one, see? Hurts something awful.
Oh. Dr. Weiss is on the first floor, and Dr. Carey on the third.
What's the matter with Dr. Padulik?
I'm sorry, he isn't in today.
How about the fellow just came out?
There's nobody here.
Well, I guess I made a mistake. By the way, you like roller skating?
I beg your pardon?
Nothing. A book of matches on your desk says Easy Glide Roller Rink. I thought maybe you liked to skate. That dentist setup smelled like a herring factory at high noon in July, but I didn't push the point. I left and found a phone booth in the lobby of the building and poured my story into Whittington's shell-like ears.
There might be any number of reasons for that girl lying to you, Craig. Harry might be a boyfriend.
She doesn't like to skate, and Herman Jess is right next door. I think the dentist's office is a blind.
You think he's fronting for Jess?
I'd lay the odds. When the crowd thins out, I'm going up there to check.
Well, what do you expect to find?
I figure with the rackets Jess is running, he's got to have complete records handy, or he couldn't keep track of the take. I want to find those records.
All right. If you come across anything, bring it straight to me.
The receptionist had left for lunch, so I rang a few peals on the bell to see if Dr. Padulik was at home. He wasn't, so I let myself in with a bobby pin and went to work on the desk in the inner room. I pulled out a stack of records. That latest date was 3 months ago. The appointment book past that date was blank. The bills checked. Nothing later than 3 months ago, except the last one. A bill from the Conmont Memorial Home for $700.84 for the funeral of Martin Padulik.
What are you doing in here?
Huh? Who are you?
Who do you think I am? Dr. Martin Padulik.
He was a rabbity gray little man. Looked pretty good for a 3-month corpse. There was a vein in his forehead, jumping like a kid on a pogo stick. But his hand was steady as a rock, as it was wrapped around a .38 revolver.
You stay where you are.
What do you think you're going to do?
You broke into my office. I'm going to call the police.
Fine. You go ahead. Maybe you can explain to them how you happened to be buried 3 months ago.
What?
You're no dentist. You're fronting for Herman Jess.
Well, then, you're crazy.
Am I? I'll save you time. I'll call the police.
Give me that gun.
And you give me that gun. There. Fair trade. Now, settle down, friend, while I jam a chair under the doorknob. I'm going to look for Herman Jess's records. I was in a tough spot, and I knew it. The License Commission doesn't look kindly on breaking and entering, and if that office was clean, I was in for trouble. I knew I couldn't search that room for anything smaller than an elephant in the few minutes before somebody drifted in, so I kept one eye on my buddy and played it cozy. I yanked the desk drawers out and threw the papers around like a picnic. I pulled the medical books down off the shelves to make sure that there weren't any false fronts. I wasn't getting any tape from the phony dentist, so I headed for the other room. I dumped the instrument trays, and he couldn't have cared less. But when I headed for the file cabinet in the corner, the vein in his forehead beat like a ragtime drummer on bathtub gin.
You can't get away with this. I'll have you in jail.
Yeah. I slid open the file drawers. Nothing but dental records. I slammed it shut, and my playmate relaxed like a hangover in a Turkish bath. I couldn't figure it. Those records ought to be near that file cabinet. Maybe a secret panel. I couldn't be sure without an x-ray, and then I got it.
What are you doing?
Taking a look in this box on top of the file.
Those are valuable x-rays. Don't get them out of order.
I won't. I'm taking them with me. This first batch are teeth, all right. But from here on, these pictures didn't come from anybody's mouth. Not unless his molars kept double-entry books. Oh, company.
Let me in. I know you're in there, Craig.
Not for long. Which way is the nearest fire escape?
Hurry! I got him!
In the pig's eye, friend!
Craig, stand still or I shoot.
The window was locked, so I tossed a wastepaper basket through it. I was 2 floors down the fire escape when Jess showed up in the window. It was slamming around like a pinball game with body English. I hit the ground and sprinted for the curb. Then I jumped into a waiting hack. As pulled away, I saw Celluloid Harry bounce out of the building and into another cab.
Hey, mister, I wouldn't want to make you nervous, but you're being followed.
No, I'm very popular. Can you lose them?
No. My life insurance lapsed last week.
Would $50 change your mind?
What good is insurance after I'm dead? $50 I can spend now. Hold on to your plate.
We weaseled through Manhattan. The cab behind us stuck like a mustard plaster. We got into a jam and a transverse across Central Park.
Hang on, mister. I'm going to cut inside that bus on the sidewalk. You got caught by the lights.
Shot straight up to Whittington's mink-lined sewer. He was showing himself color shots with his Cocker Spaniel on the slide projector when I waltzed in.
Craig, you didn't ring?
Doorbells are for process service. I've got Herman Jess and the protection racket in my pocket. Here.
What are these?
Dental x-ray films. Only there isn't an inlay in the bunch. These are Jess's records, microfilm to match the teeth x-rays.
Are you sure?
You can't read them without a magnifying widget. But I'll bet there's enough in that envelope to send Jess up the river like salmon. Shall I call the cops?
I'll take care of that, Craig.
Wait. You expecting anybody up here tonight?
No, I left orders not to be disturbed.
In that case, we'd better get ready to receive company. Somebody's coming up the stairs. I thought I lost Harry, but I guess he's stuck. Chuck that envelope in the fish tank.
What the?
Go ahead. It won't hurt the film. Now, try to look innocent.
All right, Craig. Get him up.
We were just talking about you, Jess. Was your nose itching?
You hoist him, too, Whittingham.
You can't get away with this, Jess. I'll have you...
You won't do anything. You're pretty brave in those crusading editorials. Wrecked my health. Let's see you stand up against the gun.
Craig, do something.
Got any suggestions?
And I want those records this sponge brain stole from me.
You got me wrong, Jess.
Shall I work on them?
No. We'll try Whittington.
What are you going to do?
Harry, ask him where those records are.
You get away from me.
You heard Mr. Jess. Where are the records?
I don't know.
Hey!
Don't move, Craig. Ask him again, Harry.
Come on, Whittington. Where are they?
I don't know, I told you. Let me alone.
Listen, Jess.
Don't move. I'm a very nervous man. It would be very bad for me to shoot you. Now you got anything to say?
No, not when you put it that way.
Okay, Harry, go ahead.
All right, Whittington.
No, don't hit me again. No, don't.
Where are those records?
No, not again. There, in the fish tank. Craig hid them there.
Harry.
I got them.
Look inside.
It's films, all right.
All right, we're getting out of here. Come on, Harry.
What's that?
Mr. Whittington is having open house.
What are you talking about, Craig?
I think the boys in blue are coming to tea.
A cop. He's bluffing.
Care to wait and see?
The back door, Harry. We don't want trouble on the way out. Take care of Craig.
A pleasure.
Harry was behind me when he let me have it with the butt end of his gun. I retired temporarily from this world, and when I got back, I was looking at a pair of shoulders 4 yards wide with Lieutenant Buck Edwards cooing gently in my ear.
Craig, you all right?
Oh.
I'd better send for a doctor.
How about Jess?
Dad is yesterday's racing form. He tried to shoot it out with the boys I had staked downstairs. And Celluloid Harry's on his way to prison ward at Bellevue.
Just dead, eh? Lieutenant, did you search the body? There was certain evidence.
You mean this envelope?
That belongs to the paper, Lieutenant. Part of a confidential report.
I don't know, Mr. Whittington.
I'll take complete responsibility. We rate a break on this story. Craig was retained by us.
Go ahead, Buck. Give it to him.
Excellent. I'll put it in my safe.
Better look at it first.
What do you mean?
You'll find it's a real classy collection of diseased choppers.
What are you talking about?
They aren't the real microfilm records. They're just a bunch of legitimate x-rays of teeth. I left the real records with the cab driver and told him to take them to Lieutenant Edwards.
What you told me...
Sure I did. But I like to play it safe. I knew Jess would be after me, and I was afraid he might persuade you to give them back.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I was rather weak. But I really thought he intended to kill us.
Oh, don't apologize. You were terrific. That was a great strong-arm scene you played with your stooges.
Stooges?
Sure. Why do you think I ducked those records, Whittington? When I was going through that x-ray file, one thing caught my eye, a color transparency. It didn't exactly belong in that file because I'd seen a print of that picture before, on your desk. A very flattering portrait of your wife.
My wife?
Yes, you made a slight mistake. You must have got it mixed up with your microfilm records when you shipped them back to your boy, Herman Jess.
Oh, see here. Are you trying to insinuate that
I mean, you're the real boss behind this racket, not Harry Jess.
Why, well, that's absurd. If that were true, then why would I have hired you?
Self-protection. Your board of directors was pushing you to deliver that crime series, but you figured that if I turned anything up, it'd be easy to take care of me this way.
Craig, you're out of your mind. You can't prove a thing.
Oh, yes, we can. We checked those microfilms, Mr. Whittington. There's a payoff to you listed on every page. You've been under arrest for the last 5 minutes.
Well, Whittington, I guess this squares accounts for George the tailor, but you still owe me for one brown suit. I'll put it on the bill for services rendered.
Take him away, boys. Coming, Barrie.
Coming, Lieutenant. So long, folks. See you next week.
You have just heard Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator, starring William Gargan. Next week, another exciting transcribed story starring America's #1 detective, William Gargan, as Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator. Tonight's story was written by Ernest Kenoy and featured Santos Ortega in the role of Alfred Whittington. Your announcer is Don Pardo. All persons and places mentioned in this program were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
One thing about marriage, folks. Many are made in heaven, but there are others that are unmade by the fourth application of the vow, unto death do us part.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. That's the name, Barrie Craig. You rent an office on the 3rd floor of the old Mercantile Building. You've got a city license which says you're a confidential investigator. So, most of your life, you sit around and wait. Some of the guys in the business hire blondes and call them secretaries. Others confide in cab drivers, bend bartenders' ears, even buy dictating machines. Maybe it helps them forget that they're the loneliest guys in the world, because nobody really talks to you. The suspicious wives, the frightened parents, the desperate kids who walk into your office never even see you. To them, you're a license, a pair of ears, and sometimes a gun. Nothing human. And after a while, maybe you're not. It's open.
How do you lock this door?
There's a thing underneath the doorknob there. You slide it over.
Oh, yeah. You're Barrie Craig.
Yeah.
You're not doing very well, are you? I could write my name on the dust in your desk.
What name would that be?
Wilma Lord.
How do you do, Miss Lord?
Mr. Craig, have you ever killed anyone?
Not for a fee.
Will you answer a question about the weather?
I don't know much about the weather. Well, why'd you lock the door behind you, Miss Lord?
I can't have anybody see me here.
There's a woman comes around a couple of times a week. I'll speak to her about the dust.
Oh, that's not... I'm going to marry a man named John Waring.
Uh-huh.
He's older than I am, a lot older.
It's a question of taste.
He's rich.
Sweetens the taste.
We're going to be married in a few weeks. I want nothing to happen to that marriage. I'll hire you.
Cupid Craig, with a $sign in front of the Cupid. What do you think might happen?
Death.
Something wrong with Waring's health?
You've heard of murder, haven't you?
I've heard of it. Whose murder, yours or Waring's? The door's locked. Whose murder?
I can't stay. Is there another way out?
Back of the water cooler. Leads to the back hallway and the fire stairs.
I'll phone you.
Sure. Yeah?
Get out of my way.
That gun a little heavy for you?
I said...
Okay. Well?
The dame. Where's the dame?
You don't look too good.
Where is she?
Got a name for her?
The dame. Walked in here, I seen her.
And now you want to take another look?
Want to give her back a knife.
The floor stopped him. I kicked the door shut behind him. The knife he'd mentioned was angling out between his shoulder blades. I didn't want anybody to confuse him with a client. The homicide squad arrived and went to work. I don't like watching the boys. They're too smooth. I start thinking of all the stiffs they've practiced on. I shut my eyes.
Are we boring you, Craig?
Lieutenant Rogers, I've seen it all before.
Too bad. If only we could work out an entirely new approach. Then perhaps you'd watch us, hmm?
Stop being so tough, Trav. Everybody's forgiven you for having gone to college.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Craig, the story's no good.
The only one I've got on hand.
I'll tell you why it's no good. The punk there with the knife in his back was on the Harry Otis payroll.
Oh?
Wilma Lord is on the Otis payroll.
Must be a large payroll.
Among his varied and largely illegal activities, Otis also runs a supper club over on the east side. The Gilded Lily.
Mm-hmm.
You can have Wilma Lord for supper there 6 nights a week and twice on Sundays.
It's too early for supper.
The last couple of months, Otis has been very busy. Covering up.
The Crime Commission?
The Crime Commission. Mr. Otis is a very large target for them. He's been doing his best to shrink recently. Woman Lord could have come to you because she planned to concertize with the commission and wanted protection.
Why me?
You're big. You're good-natured. And, well...
I'm stupid?
No. But you like to believe people when they give you a chance to.
What about the Waring angle? Did she pick him out of the phone book?
There is no Waring angle. John Waring happens to be a distinguished philanthropist. That means a guy with so much money he even gives some of it away.
Thanks for the translation. I still believe Wilma Lord's story.
Why? Because she's young, beautiful? Because she looked you straight in the eye when she told you all?
No, Trav. Because she was nasty. Homicide wound up and went away. One nice thing about it, after they were through, the office no longer needed dusting. The clock in the church tower across the street made noises. So, after a while, did my stomach. But I was waiting for a phone call. Maybe the cops would get Wilma Lord before she could reach a phone. Maybe Wilma Lord had no intention of phoning me. I've been a sucker before. I prefer it to being a wise guy. So I listened to the bell, ignored my stomach, and was rewarded. Hello?
Mr. Craig?
Yeah,
Late, I thought you might have gone home.
I'm still here.
You're alone?
Yeah,
I've got to see you. That is, if after what happened you want to.
I want to. I always believe a client.
I didn't know you'd taken the case.
Where do we meet?
Not here at my apartment. It's too dangerous.
Wait a minute. Would there be a couple of cops sitting on your lap by any chance?
No.
Why not? They've got an alarm out for you.
Well, the apartment isn't in my name. Look, let's make it park, the 67th Street entrance, in an hour.
The park in an hour. Oh, Miss Lord.
Yes.
Don't bring a friend. I locked the office door. Nothing in the office worth stealing, but this way, maybe I could tempt a burglar. I felt underprivileged. I'd never been burgled.
Hey, Mr. Craig.
Never mind the glad greetings, Jake.
Terrible tragedy you had, Mr. Craig.
That's what I meant. Stop licking your chops and let's ride downstairs, huh?
Terrible tragedy. Lieutenant Rogers says he didn't bleed much.
You take the lieutenant's word for it. By the way, Jake, did the corpse come up in the elevator?
Lieutenant asked me that.
A coincidence. Did he?
Yeah. Come up in the elevator. Didn't have that knife in his back at the time, though.
Maybe the elevator was too crowded.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
How about the girl? She come up the same trip?
Lieutenant asked me that, too.
Whatever made you give up that farm in Vermont, Jake?
Got tired of watching the Four Seasons. What I told the lieutenant was maybe she did come up in the elevator, but I didn't see her.
Uh-huh. How about opening the door?
And if she was young and pretty, like the lieutenant said, why, I'd have spotted her.
Sure, after all your experience with the Four Seasons. Jake, how about...
Oh, I keep forgetting.
Craig,
Yeah?
in case anybody stops around and asks for you, what'll I tell them?
Tell them I'm out checking a season. Good night, Jake. The park was close enough so I could take a couple of hamburgers aboard at Willie's wagon. A couple of hamburgers and a cup of the stuff Willie calls coffee. Willie keeps his coffee urn shined. I was facing it. What I saw in the urn looked like what you see in the distorting mirrors in the Coney Island funhouse, except not so funny. Willie!
You got a complaint? Take it up with the mayor.
Take a look over my left shoulder, Willie.
Oh, it's gorgeous. You want I should pin a gardenia on it?
Somebody looking into the wagon had his face plastered against the window. I don't want to turn and tip him off.
Huh? You hitting the pipe again?
No face?
I bet you inhaled, too.
Oh, forget it, Willie. You must have ducked. Here. Take that up with the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Boy, you throwing dough around. What's the matter? You had a horse in the fifth?
No. I had a corpse in the third. The park was half a dozen blocks over and west. I couldn't spot a tail on me, which didn't mean a thing. Good tails don't get spotted, especially working on me. I'm easy to keep in sight from a long way off. Nobody had moved the park around. The 67th Street entrance looked cozy and dark. I tossed a mental coin, came up heads, which meant I should go home and spend a few hours asleep. Then I cheated. I went on into the park. An investigator's job is a funny one. Either you play it hard and believe nobody, which is fine. It's safe. You stay out of trouble. Maybe after 10 years, you're growing ulcers because nobody likes you, but an ulcer never killed anyone yet. Or else you believe people. Then you've got trouble. You're not smart. Except maybe it's not a choice. Kept getting darker. Not a choice because it depends on the way you're built. The way I'm built, you stick your neck out. I did. Only warning was a slide of feet on the gravel path. If you're hit on the head hard enough, you get knocked out. All you remember afterwards is getting up. It's a memory you're willing to trade cheap.
The guy looks like he's returning to us, Mr. Otis.
He might have fractured his skull, Peeper.
Private eyes have got very thick skulls. All I know is I read about them all the time. Private eyes are always getting bopped on the skull. It don't bother him.
It bothers me.
Peeper, help the gentleman. Never mind. Mr. Craig.
I've got a headache.
I'm sorry Peeper is so enthusiastic.
Send him over a little closer to me. I'll calm him down.
I'm afraid not, Mr. Craig. Peeper is armed. He was acting on instructions from me.
Was he supposed to bring me in alive? I'm not that funny. How did he find me in the park?
He trailed you there from your office.
Uh-huh.
Rather a cold, unpleasant night, Mr. Craig. You often walk in the park.
I managed to get there from time to time.
You wouldn't have been meeting anyone there?
I could use a couple of aspirins.
Peeper was perhaps a little impatient.
How was I supposed to know he had an appointment?
Peeper.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Otis.
Well, Craig?
I could still use those aspirins.
I see. Well, perhaps it isn't very important. What's more to the point, Mr. Craig, you had a visitor this afternoon.
I had lots of visitors, most of them in uniform.
I'm referring to the gentleman who preceded the police. The gentleman whose untimely death was responsible for the visit. You didn't happen to kill him by any chance?
The cops didn't think so.
They might be prejudiced. Also, you may have pleaded self-defense.
Otis, you know better than that. A man like you has pipelines to the department.
Very well. A question, then. What was the gentleman...
You mean the punk with the knife in his back?
...doing in your office?
He was dying there. Hey, I'm hearing music. Ringing in my ears?
A rather good little orchestra. They'd be insulted by your description.
Don't tell them about it. This wouldn't happen to be the Gilded Lily, would it?
You know the place?
Sure. Some of my best friends have had supper in it.
What was Jimmy doing in your office?
A punk? He might have been looking for a confidential investigator.
Oh? For what purpose?
To help him find his lost innocence, maybe.
Beeper.
I'm not joking. What job was he doing for you?
What makes you think he was doing anything at all for me?
He was on your payroll?
Indeed.
The cops told me. They're blabbermouths.
Pity about the civil service. Things would be so much easier otherwise.
You could buy more for less, huh?
You're not going to tell me why Jimmy came into your office?
I didn't say that. I'll tell you why. He was looking for the owner of the knife in his back.
Oh?
He never got around to telling me who it was. Would you like some information?
Very much. At what price?
We'll discuss that later. The information goes like this. Your boy came up in the elevator. He didn't have the knife in him then. He did have when he got to my office. So...
Someone presented him with a knife someplace between the elevator on your floor and your office.
Yeah. One thing more. It wasn't right outside the office door.
Oh?
He got it near the elevator. He went down. There were a couple of bloodstains on the hall floor indicating that. He went down, stayed down for a while, pulled himself to his feet, and made it to me.
Why?
You didn't like my previous suggestion?
No. Craig, whom did Jimmy follow to your office?
It'd be nice to know, wouldn't it? I mean, for me. Because you know, don't you?
You mentioned something about a price for the information. What price?
What do you think about matrimony?
I've no time to discuss philosophy at the moment.
Or philanthropy?
Beeper.
Yeah, Mr. Otis.
Up until this moment, I've been considering Mr. Craig an honest, if somewhat stupid man. Now, I'm not so sure.
Yeah?
Either of his honesty or of his stupidity.
I can get you references on both counts.
I would like to be sure, Beeper.
I take him apart?
Unless Mr. Craig would like to tell us another story.
I'm out of stories.
You're in trouble, however. Beeper, we want Mr. Craig to explain his remarks about matrimony and philanthropy.
Yeah, hold it, Craig. I wouldn't mind plugging you in a leg, say. Give me an excuse. You're gonna stand and take it nice? Okay. Take it. I hope the gun barrel don't scare you permanent. How about putting your arms behind your back, huh? Gonna start getting painful soon. Thanks. Now, hey, who? Opportunity knocks.
No, Otis. I've just inherited a gun. Beepers. You weren't expecting company. Mr. Otis, I've been knocked unconscious. I've been pistol whipped. Maybe I'm sore.
I wasn't expecting company.
Yeah, that's the reason Beeper was startled. All right, open the door. Let's see who it is.
Hello, Mr. Otis.
The Marine. Hello, Trav.
Hi, Craig. Mind if I come in?
The office belongs to Otis.
You're holding the gun.
That belongs to Beeper.
Beeper? He's lying down. Tired?
He ran into a doorknob. Have a gun on him.
Thanks. Who knows? Maybe he has a license for it. We'll see.
Exactly what do you want here, Lieutenant?
We've had the place staked out. Nobody we were interested in showed up. I got the report that a big man was carried in. Turns out it was Mr. Craig.
That's how it turns out.
The place staked out? And you're looking for...
If nobody minds, I'll get out.
In a hurry, Barrie?
I'm late.
For what?
A date.
Now, wait a minute. Way it looks, you were slugged and brought here.
I guess it does look that way.
You could prefer charges.
It was all in fun.
That welt across your face doesn't look funny.
One of the reasons I'm in a hurry.
What?
I want to have the nasty little bruise kissed away. Lieutenant Rogers didn't argue with me. He wanted conversation with Otis and Beeper. Nobody had mentioned Wilma Lord yet. Not Otis, not Trav. But they were thinking of her. So was I. I tried the park. A couple of hours had died since the appointment, but I had to make sure. I made sure. Maybe Wilma Lord had been waiting for me. Maybe not. Either way, she wasn't waiting anymore. Trav would annoy Otis for a while. He had nothing to hold him on. He had nothing to hold Beeper on. For a while, Otis and Beeper would be busy with the lieutenant. After that, they might be busy about something else. I remembered Trav's definition of a philanthropist. I could use some money. My name is Barrie Craig.
Yes?
You're John Waring?
I am.
Mind if I come in?
It's rather late.
So late you sent the butler to bed, huh?
Well, that is hardly... Who did you say you were?
Barrie Craig.
Should I know you?
Yes.
Why?
Because you're a philanthropist.
Good night.
I didn't finish. Because you're a philanthropist about to get married.
Come in.
Thanks.
In here, if you please. Now then. Your name is Barrie Craig. You're a reporter, perhaps?
Not exactly.
Then why your interest in my...
Marriage? I've been hired to make sure it goes through on schedule.
Hired? By whom?
Your fiancée. Didn't I use the right word?
You mean Miss Lord?
How many girls were you planning to marry?
Craig, I permitted you to enter my home because you seem to know about my marriage. I didn't expect you to insult me.
I'm sorry. Blood gets on my nerves.
Blood?
A man was murdered in my office today.
And that's why...
That's why what?
Nothing. This man who was murdered, had he any connection with...
Your marriage?
Yes.
What do you think?
I can't think anything about it. I'm confused.
So confused you haven't thought of offering me a drink?
I beg your pardon. Oh.
Yeah. I can almost think you were expecting me. That's 2 glasses you've got sitting on that coffee table. With the drinks in them. One's rye by the color. The other?
Mr. Craig, you're in my home.
Looks like creme de menthe. A girl's drink.
I suppose it's too much to expect the behavior of a gentleman from a confidential investigator.
Yeah. We're the sorted type. I had an appointment with Miss Lord.
She kept it, didn't she?
Why don't we ask her?
Ask?
Nice drapes you've got. Pity they don't quite reach the floor.
Now, look here, young man.
Never mind, John.
Hello, Miss Lord.
Hello.
Did you decide the park was too cold at this time of the year?
What made you come here?
You wouldn't be holding up in your apartment, listed in your name or not. The cops are bright nowadays.
Well...
Where else would you duck for cover? It was simple. Lucky for me, it was simple. I get confused easy.
What do you want?
You hired me to do a job. I believe you. I always believe my clients. Sometimes I'm suckered, sometimes not. Because sometimes clients don't expect to be believed.
I resent all this.
Don't be in too big a hurry, Mr. Waring. Miss Lord was afraid that the marriage was going to be interrupted by murder.
Murder?
She didn't get around to telling me whose murder, yours or hers. Because another murder happened to somebody else.
I didn't...
Somebody on Harry Otis's payroll. Whose idea was this marriage?
I asked Miss Lord to be my wife.
And she said yes. Why?
I love... You don't have to laugh at me.
Harry Otis. You were on his payroll, too, Miss Lord. The Crime Commission was getting ready to ask him questions about his business, his tie-ins with officials, his, backers.
I must ask you...
You were going to say leave. Let's pretend it was explained. Wilma Lord's young. She's beautiful. Maybe she could have wrangled a marriage offer out of you anyway. But her working for Otis can't be a coincidence. Sure you asked her to marry you. After she told you she knew about your connection with Otis.
My connection?
Financial. Dollar bills don't have pedigrees on them. That's a shame. How many of the dollar bills making up your bank account came out of Harry Otis's dirty enterprises?
This is absolutely unwarranted.
No. Up until 5 minutes ago, it was a guess. A stupid guess. Because I couldn't figure any other reason for the whole deal. Now it's not a guess anymore.
It's not a guess anymore.
Hello, Otis. I've been expecting you. And the gun.
That's nice. Beeper's outside with a gun, too.
And the car? With the motor idling?
Another stupid guess?
Sure.
The stupid ones give the most trouble. If you'd had brains enough, Craig, you'd have stayed out of this.
I couldn't. I was hired. By Miss Lord.
I had to, Harry. I was
I
afraid.
had you set up. Waring was going to marry you, so you couldn't testify against him. Why'd you bury the knife in Jimmy's back?
I didn't.
I had him on you all the time.
Would you have had any reason for killing him, Otis?
What reason?
Not even a stupid guess.
Otis.
Yes.
This squabbling. It's unpleasant. And a waste of time.
Meaning what?
Whatever Miss Lord did or didn't do, Mr. Craig is now in a position to inform the Crime Commission of Of
our business association?
Yes. That would be disastrous. Not only for myself, but for you as well. I hesitate to suggest anything violent, but...
But what choice have we got?
Precisely.
No, there's been...
Shut up, Wilma. You've still got Jimmy's death to account for.
Oh, you...
Miss Lord.
What?
Don't drink that.
What are you talking about? Took my drink away.
You in a hurry to die?
The man is insane. Otis.
Yeah, Otis. The man looking for a murderer.
What was wrong with the drink?
Another guess. A solid one this time. Wilma Lord's wanted by the police for the murder of your punk. Wilma Lord disappeared. Suppose she died in his house. Waring would have the body what? Buried? Burned? Either way, no more Wilma Lord. The cops would spend the next century looking for her. The case would be closed.
Oh, no.
Also, John Waring wouldn't have to marry her. He'd be rid of a witness against him. What he had in mind for you, Otis, I wouldn't know. But he had something in mind. Then he'd be free. He could go on being philanthropic.
It's childish melodrama.
Murder's melodrama, only it's not childish. Mr. Waring, when I walked in here, you asked me if I was a reporter. The gag being you'd never seen me, heard of me before. But a little later on, you said something about a confidential investigator not being a gentleman.
He must have followed me, too.
You said Wilma Lord had kept her appointment with me. How did you know? If she told you, you wouldn't have confused me with a reporter. If she didn't...
Wait a minute. He was checking on her because he was planning to get rid of her.
But your boy Jimmy spotted him on the third floor where my office is. Nobody else would have had any motive for killing him. Waring had to because it tipped his hand about his plan for the girl.
Nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Then suppose you drink this, huh?
I detest creme de menthe.
Drink it, Waring.
I shall leave now. I find this highly distasteful.
I said drink it.
You're being a fool. A fool.
Had to be done.
Done. The reason I knew the drink was poisoned. Take a sniff at it, Otis.
Don't bother.
A deep sniff. So sorry. Got it in your eyes. Thanks for the gun.
You...
Mustn't lose your temper. Waring killed Jimmy. Sure. But you had to kill Waring, didn't you? If you'd turned him over to the cops, he'd have blabbed. The crime commission.
Beeper!
Beeper? You know something, Otis? You must be a sinking ship. That was it. All wound up, I went home, I slept. The next day, I was back on the third floor, being lonely.
How do you lock this door?
There's a thing underneath the doorknob. Oh, you remembered. Somebody following you again?
No. I just don't want to be interrupted.
At what?
Thanking you. I don't have any money. I'm not marrying a rich man anymore. But I don't think you'll mind.
Oh. I always believe a client. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, The Case of the Borrowed Knife, was written by Lou Vitez. Next week, it's an exciting story titled Dead on Arrival, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, I devote my time to a bashful blonde, an escaped lunatic, and a stone-cold corpse. And, brother, is it murder? See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Wilma was Elspeth Eric. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, is under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking. William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
The trouble with murder as an occupation, folks, is that it doesn't last very long. In no time at all, you come to a dead end.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. An investigator's license costs only a few bucks. When you're starting in the business, you've got ambition. So you have the license put under glass and framed. You spend a couple of hours deciding on the best place to hang it. Then you find out all you've done is bought yourself a front seat for the back stairs. But you also find out an awful lot of people use the back stairs. It's open.
Craig?
Yeah.
You alone?
There are mice. They're tame, though.
I wonder if you're the man I'm looking for, Craig.
You'll have to figure that out by yourself.
It says confidential investigator on your door.
I had that put on myself. Maybe I was boasting.
Small place.
Hmm.
What's this door?
Leads to the back stairs.
Yes?
You want to look under the desk, too?
I have to be careful. How much money do you make a month?
Not enough to have my clothes made by your tailor.
Mm-hmm. I think perhaps you'll do.
Thanks.
This is what you'll work with.
An envelope?
Take a look inside.
All right. Money.
Count it.
Uh-huh. 5,000.
Yes. I want you to buy a necklace for me, Craig.
For $5,000?
That's right.
You got any preferences in necklaces?
A girl named Wendy Harper has the one I want. She lives at the Beecham Towers Hotel.
Maybe she's got more than one.
Oh, no. The necklace is pearl. You buy it from her, turn it over to me, and collect $500.
You don't like the Beecham Towers Hotel?
Oh, what's that got to do with
You
it?
could go over there, buy the necklace yourself, and save my fee.
I could also be sued for divorce.
Meaning you can't afford to be seen with her. Fair enough.
I'd like a receipt for the $5,000.
Sure. Received from... From?
You don't need that.
How will I get in touch with him?
I'll phone you.
Okay. Your receipt.
Thanks. I suggest you begin work at once.
Right. Oh, one thing.
Yes?
Suppose she doesn't want to sell.
She'll sell.
You're sure the necklace is worth $5,000?
Yes, I should be. I gave it to her.
I congratulated myself cautiously. A case a week like this, and I could start getting my clothes tailored, too. I locked the office door. Who knows? Word might get around I was a man people handed $5,000 to. It would give the entire building, all 3 moldering stories of it, class. Burglars might start dropping in. Oh, hello, Jake.
Hey, Mr. Craig.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm going down.
Don't rush it. The elevator's got to have time to rest.
After the long pull?
Yeah. Got to rest your horse at the end of a furrow, you know.
Jake, forget about that farm in Vermont, will you? You're in the big city now.
I'd rather have a horse. If you was in such a hurry, why didn't you walk down?
Too proud. I've just moved into the upper income brackets.
That so?
Thanks. By the way, Jake, did you notice the man you took down from my floor a couple of minutes ago?
No.
Had your nose buried in the Farmer's Almanac?
I didn't take nobody down.
Oh. Well, that was my client.
Who was?
The man you didn't take down. I don't suppose you took him up, either.
No?
Used the stairs both times. The back stairs, Jake.
Yeah?
When was the last time those back stairs were swept?
I don't know. I only been here 6 months.
Yeah.
Mr. Craig?
What?
Must get kind of lonely up there on the 3rd floor.
Sort of. Why?
Oh, just wondering. You sure you had a client?
I smiled at Jake. I could feel the fat envelope in my pocket. $5,000 carries a lot of conviction.
Good afternoon, sir.
Miss Harper.
Is she expecting you?
Phone up to her, and she will be.
Yes, sir. The name?
Craig.
One moment, sir. Miss Harper, there's a gentleman here to see you, Mr. Craig. Yes, of course, Miss Harper. 407. Miss Harper's expecting you.
Thanks. The Beecham Towers was a lot nicer looking than the building on 23rd. But then I didn't use the back stairs. Miss Harper, I figured, was leaving it all up to me. 407 was a suite. You walk past the small foyer before you hit the living room. It was a nice living room. The furniture was modern and bright. There was a wrong note, though. Miss Wendy Harper. She was on the couch. She looked modern and bright, too. The wrong note? She happened to be dead. Her eyes were open. For a minute, I had the impression they were looking at me. I couldn't decide if they liked what they saw, or if they were looking over my shoulder, the way I should have looked. Yeah. Oh, all right. A little late, friend. What do you want?
I'm Clancy, the house detective.
Good for you.
Now, you're in my way.
You're not coming in.
Now, listen. The old lady in the next suite heard a woman screaming from here.
When?
A few minutes ago.
She needs new batteries for a hearing aid. What time is it?
7:30.
Nobody screamed in here for at least a couple of hours.
Where's Miss Harper?
She's in.
I want to talk to her.
You're going to be disappointed. Miss Harper's in no mood for conversation.
I'd like her to tell me that.
Lots of things we'd like just never happen.
Hey, what's the idea? Hey.
You want to get in here? Take my advice. Call the cops.
Hey.
I slammed the door shut in Clancy's face. Clancy was guessing. He wasn't sure. Maybe I was just a boyfriend with a temper. He'd stand around and wonder what to do for a while before trying to come into the room again. That gave me time enough to go through the suite, make sure it was empty, make sure Miss Harper was still dead. She was. They don't come alive very often. And then check on a pearl necklace. There wasn't one around. I hadn't figured there would be. By that time, I was in a hurry. This time, I was the one for the back stairs. I was picking up time with every step I took. But time for what? The back door led to an alley. I had ash cans for company. A man named Nothing, whom no one had seen, for a client, and a crude frame-up for murder as a future. I had no optimism about my chances for playing tag with the homicide squad. The cops had a name for me. I had no name for the man who'd sent me to visit a dead girl. No name, no lead, nothing but a hope that whoever had set up the deal would be too impatient to wait for the morning papers. Up the street, the Marines were coming. I said goodbye to the alley before they could land, made the other side of the street, and waited. The hotel was on a quiet street. No crowds. Nobody watched the cops pour into the hotel. Nobody but me and a small man pretending he was part of a doorway down the street. The last cop went into the hotel, and the small man abandoned the doorway. He didn't know it, but he had me for company. It was easy. The small man wasn't worrying. According to the general idea, I was being interviewed by a dozen cops at the moment. He led me across town with no trouble. The address was 5413 East 79th Street. The house was old. The ivy on its walls was probably hand-picked. The small man used the servant's entrance. I decided to be formal. A brass plate under the doorbell read John Peter Kendall. I thought he'd be surprised to see me on his doorstep. I was surprised.
Yes?
Mrs. Kendall?
I'm Mrs. Kendall.
Good.
I beg your...
You're excused. Better shut the door.
Are you a salesman?
Not exactly.
Well, you're big enough, heavens knows, but you don't look very dangerous. So?
Thank you. Mr. Kendall home?
I don't think so. I don't know.
I guess it is a pretty large house.
It is. Also, John and I don't get on very well together. So why am I telling you this?
Maybe because I look reliable and a little stupid.
That's silly. It's not very hospitable keeping you out here in the hall.
It's not.
But I intend to continue doing it unless you can give me a reason. And for your being here, I mean.
I do insurance work.
Oh?
Your husband hired me to trace some property of his.
Well, he must have been very anxious about it if he asked you to come here at this hour.
He was anxious.
Strange.
Why?
Dear John has so much property.
Oh, this was something special.
And confidential?
It used to be.
What does that mean?
Lost any pearl necklaces recently, Mrs. Kendall?
Why, yes, I did.
That's what he wanted me to trace.
Oh. Please come with me, Mr.
Jones.
Jones. Wait here a moment.
All right.
Mr. Jones.
Yes?
This is the necklace I lost.
It looked like $5,000, too. Mrs. Kendall, her price tag wasn't showing.
Well, Mr. Jones?
When did you get it back?
John brought it to me, perhaps an hour ago.
An hour ago? Then he is home.
He said he might go out for a stroll. I didn't try to translate. A stroll in John's peculiar vocabulary could mean almost anything.
You asked him where he got the necklace?
No. I assumed he'd hired someone like you to find it for him. Mr. Jones.
Yes?
What are you really after?
Will you see if your husband's home, please?
All right. Mr. Jones.
What?
Are you sure you're doing something for my husband? Not to him?
She didn't wait for an answer. It was very still in the Kendall home. I wondered how well Kendall had covered his relationship to Wendy Harper. Pretty well, I thought. There were no cops around. Mrs. Kendall was taking a long time. Too long a time. Mrs. Kendall! Mrs. Kendall!
I'm here.
Where's the light?
No, he might shoot again. Never mind. It's gone. The light switch, the wall to your left.
Okay.
Oh, frightened. So frightened.
Shh. What?
I was talking to Max. He's our handyman. I'd asked him about John.
That's Max over there?
Yes. Max started to tell me something about... Oh, it's crazy. About a hotel. When John opened the door, he'd been listening. He had a gun. It was dreadful. Dreadful.
Here, sit down. I'll have to take a look at Max.
All right. I don't know if he'd been there or seen something. He was staring at me as though he were terrified. And then the door opened behind him. I could see John's face. And after that, the shots came.
You'll have to phone the police. Yeah, I can't stay. I've got a date. Mrs. Kendall, where would your husband go if he didn't want to be found?
John? I don't know.
You must know. A man as wealthy as he is.
Well, he's got a place on the Sound. It's only a shack, sort of a boathouse.
What's the address?
Riverview Road, right off the parkway.
I'll find it. You'll be all right. The police will...
Mr. Jones, why was Max shot?
Why? My benefit, mostly.
Your benefit?
Yeah, his death moves me right out of the chair.
I don't understand.
You don't have to, for right now. I've got an errand to run, to convey thanks and make a payment.
Hey, Bud.
Yeah?
Kind of late to be driving out to the Sound, ain't it?
You mind?
Nah, I don't mind. As long as you got the fare.
I've got the fare.
Only reason I brung it up is, not many cars going out this way this time of night.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the car behind us must be tailing us.
Car behind?
Yeah. Been there last half an hour. It's got one headlight weaker than the other, kind of stuck in my mind.
Don't worry about it.
I don't want no trouble.
There won't be any, for you.
Riverview Road, bud. That the shack up ahead?
Yeah. The other car.
Didn't swing around a bend. Was with us up until then.
Nice. How much do I owe you?
Couple of bucks.
Here you are.
Thanks. How about me hanging around for a while?
No, it might discourage my friend.
The guy on your tail?
Uh-huh. Good night.
Go on.
Who's that?
Craig. Barrie Craig. Recognize the name, Mr. Kendall?
What do you want?
Hard talking through a door.
Don't try anything, Craig.
You don't need that gun.
Let's not agree about that.
It's cold out here.
Come in. Slowly.
Thanks.
Over there at the table. Sit down.
Okay.
Put both hands on the table, please.
Everybody knows all the angles nowadays, except maybe me.
Why did you come out here?
I had a report to make.
Report?
Sure, don't you remember? You hired me.
Oh, well,
Funny thing. 9 times out of 10, people who hire me don't expect me to believe them, or to carry out their orders exactly the way they gave them. They're always working on an angle.
Well, what's so funny about that?
I always believe my clients. I do my best to carry out their orders the way they say they want them to be. That gets me into more trouble.
You're wasting time.
And you don't have much time left?
You said you had a report to make.
Sorry. That necklace you hired me to get.
Well?
It's back in your wife's possession.
You gave it to her?
No, you did.
It's a little late for jokes.
No jokes. You can check with your wife. Not only that, Mr. Kendall, the whole deal worked out a lot cheaper than you expected.
What do you mean?
$5,000 is a lot of money. One girl's life, a lot cheaper.
You've still got the money?
Yeah.
Now, don't reach.
Stop being so nervous. I was just getting this. $5,000.
And Wendy?
What do you think?
Well, I don't understand what you mean.
He's had time enough to get here, so I'd better get rid of this light. Your gun, Kendall. I'll need it. Don't move around, Kendall. It's dark in here. Our mystery man outside hasn't got artillery, only a revolver. We're safe for right now.
Well, I don't know what's happening.
Shut up. He's moving around, waiting. We can wait, too.
Yes, but for what?
He's got to make up his mind if we're dead or not. He'll have to check. Till then, let's chat, huh? A man comes into my office, hands me $5,000, instructs me to buy a pearl necklace from a girl in a hotel.
I don't...
It's my story. The guy uses the back stairs, doesn't leave his name. I take the dough, get to the hotel, walk into the girl's suite, and get knocked out. The girl is dead.
Yes, but I
You
didn't...
keep interrupting. I wake up to find the old lady next door has heard a woman scream and yelled for the house dick. He's at the door. He's supposed to walk in, find the dead girl, and me with $5,000 in cash on me. He calls homicide. I tell my story to them. How do you think they go for it?
I don't know. I don't...
Don't overdo it. It's plain enough. My client is a work of the imagination, they say. I knocked the girl off her a dough. Very simple and very pretty.
Well, then who is that outside?
When I got to the hotel, I had to be announced. The clerk called upstairs. He held a conversation with Miss Harper. He told me she said it was okay to go on up. But Wendy Harper was already dead.
Well, then...
Shh. Junior's making his bid. Okay, drop it.
What?
I said drop it, Junior. You got the moonlight behind you?
No.
I don't like it, but...
Oh!
Got a match, Kendall?
Yes, I have.
Let's have a light then, huh?
Oh, all right.
Over here. Yeah, the hotel clerk. He's registered his last guest, death. John Peter Kendall didn't have any comments to make. He stared at the dead clerk as though he'd never seen a corpse before. Maybe he hadn't. He was my client, wasn't he? Let's get out of here.
Yes, but what about him?
He's dead.
Well, isn't there something we should do?
There's nothing you do about the dead.
Well, I mean, he was killed.
Yeah?
Well, the police?
You're in the clear on this particular death. What are you worrying about?
I suppose you know better than I.
Also, I've got the gun, so...
All right.
Yeah. The clerk's car is out here. How about yours?
I came here by cab.
That can be checked.
I still say I came here by cab.
Okay, we'll borrow the car. Hold it. That's on this road.
The police.
Sounds like them. Of course, they could be on their way to a ball. Would you like to stay and chat with them?
No. There are too many things, and I'm confused.
Where's Riverview Road lead?
To the city.
I mean the other way.
Well, it sort of peters out about a half mile from here.
No good. You take one look at the corpse and come after us. With the road a dead end only a half mile away, we'd be finished. Come on.
Well, we could drive toward the city.
You think they'd let us pass if they're heading here? Forget it. We'll leave the car where it is. Who planted these trees?
I had them put there.
Oh, good for you. You should have planted them a little more thickly, however. We get in among them. This ought to be good enough.
But any search would...
Find us? Sure. But maybe... Uh-oh, here they come. A squad car and a taxi. Yeah, the cab I came out in. The driver spotted the clerk tailing me. He must have hung around down the road and heard the shots and then went back to town and collected police. They've checked the car. Empty. Now for the house. In a half dozen seconds, they'll be popping out of there looking for us. Come on. Maybe we can make the cab. The driver left it out in the road proper.
What good does that do? The squad car...
Don't worry about that. Get into the cab and start it.
All right.
Me, I'm going to be nasty to a tire. Yeah. Get going. Fine.
Well, what did you do?
Screw the tire valve open on the squad car. The clerk's car is blocked off, so they'll have to change the tire. Maybe we'll have enough time.
The police won't like it.
How very true. You know, Mr. Kendall, I'm in trouble. Not only am I wanted for murder, but now for committing a nuisance on police property. I was glad we weren't close enough to hear the cops discuss their flat tire. I think their language would have been frightful. Hey, take it easy, Mr. Kendall. We don't want a ticket, too.
We're almost back in the city. Where do you want to go?
Home and sleep, but not just yet.
Well, then...
Let's make it your home, huh?
My home?
The mansion you and your wife play hide and seek in, except both of you seem to be hiding rather than seeking.
If you don't mind, I could do without your wit.
So could I if I had any. Mr. Kendall.
Yes?
The whole thing started with a necklace, a pearl necklace.
That's right.
You didn't bother telling me it had belonged to your wife before you passed it on to Wendy Harper.
It hadn't belonged to my wife.
Then why all the anxiety about getting it back?
Well, she found out about it through the jeweler where I bought it. I had to pretend I'd gotten it for her as a surprise.
That meant you had to get it back from Wendy. It would have looked bad in a divorce case. And Wendy wouldn't part, except for $5,000?
That's right. Do we have to?
We do. Come on. Better not ring. Your handyman wouldn't answer.
Max?
He's dead, too.
What?
Use your key.
Why, I can't take much more of it.
There won't be much more. Go on. Hello, Mrs. Kendall.
Mr. Jones. And John.
You started to say Mr. Craig.
What?
The name is Craig. Where are the cops?
Oh, about Max.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't phoned them yet. I was ill after you left. Terribly ill. I still don't feel right.
That hotel clerk doesn't feel right either.
What hotel clerk? You sound like Max.
The one who sent me up to Wendy Harper's room. The one who had a conversation with Wendy Harper after she was dead.
This is all completely...
Isn't it?
John, what's happening? Why are you staring at me like that?
He doesn't love you anymore.
Oh, you...
No. Let's keep it genteel. Kendall?
Yes?
Call some cops, huh?
Police?
Yeah. They want to take Max to the morgue. Max, who led me to your wife and died for it. And even more, they'll want your wife. It had been a long evening. I'd stayed ahead of homicide for a while, but they always catch up.
Craig,
Lieutenant Trav Rogers.
give me one good reason why your license shouldn't be revoked.
Mrs. Joanne Kendall.
I said a good reason.
What else could I have done, Trav?
You're not trying to tell me you were afraid of the frame.
I never tried to tell a lieutenant of homicide anything. No, I wasn't. But I had a job to do. I got it done, too.
You could have been killed in the process.
Oh, there's a law against that.
Oh. Craig, we got the whole thing laid out. The Kendall woman moved in on what looked like a perfect opportunity to get rid of Wendy Harper, frame you for the killing, and have a club over her husband's head for the rest of his life. Because he'd hired you, all she had to do was threaten to tell us about that, and he'd be tied in. Well, where did you get the bright idea it was Mrs. Kendall who set you up and not her husband?
Clancy, the house dick at the Beecham Towers.
Huh?
He came up and told me an old lady had heard a woman scream a couple of minutes before I regained consciousness. The Harper girl had been dead for hours then.
So it had to be Mrs. Kendall screaming. To get Clancy up and you arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Buy me a beer.
Well, we'll go out and have beers, but what makes you think it's going to be on me?
You just made $500, remember?
Holy smokes.
What now?
I forgot to collect. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, The Case of the Naughty Necklace, was written by Lou Vitters. Next week, it's the strange story of paper bullets, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, folks, I find out that words can be bullets when two prize-winning authors do their literary best to prove the gun is mightier than the pen. See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Mrs. Kendall was Barbara Weeks. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
There's a place somewhere, folks, away from the hurly-burly, where everything is slow and easy, and you can sleep around the clock without being heckled. I could be referring to a cemetery.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. On call like I am as a confidential investigator, the open door, come one, come all, you don't always get cases that run according to Hoyle. Every once in a while, you catch yourself a Lulu, a case that puts a strain on your imagination. A case, say, in the category of spookaroo. You find yourself hobnobbing with ghosts and talking turkey to the dead. One like that began for me in the New York office of the Trans-Southern Insurance Company of Omaha. I'd been urgently requested to come calling, please, by a claims agent named Brennahan, Roy C. Brennahan.
I'll explain the assignment we have for you, Craig.
Before you do, answer me this. What's with your regular investigators? Why pull an outsider in?
Well, we want this investigated unofficially. We don't want to stir up anything that will expose us to a libel suit.
I catch. In case you're pulling a boner that's a butte, harassing innocent people.
Yes.
What's the story?
Our file number 15466. Double indemnity case now officially closed. We paid out $50,000 to the widow of a subway accident victim named Remo Torch. This was 90 days ago.
So?
I'll now play you a recording I secretly made of an anonymous telephone call I was party to yesterday. Now listen carefully, Craig.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Roy Brennahan, please.
This is Roy Brennahan speaking.
I've got some information for you.
Yes?
Your company paid a $50,000 claim to a Mrs. Remo Torch 3 months ago. You remember it?
Of course, sir. Remo Torch fell to his death off a subway platform. What about it?
The claim was a fraud. It wasn't Remo Torch who fell under a train.
But his widow identified the body.
The identification was false.
Who are you?
A friend. Goodbye.
Mister, wait, don't hang up. Identify yourself and there's a bonus.
But my anonymous caller hung up, Craig, without identifying himself. I thought about it overnight, and today I called you in.
Oh, it could be a crank call or an envious relative with a weird sense of humor. You must get 1,000 crackpot telephone calls.
Yes, we do. We can't ignore them. Even if there's the smallest possibility
of recovering a paid-out claim. Yeah, I've heard about the insurance claims agents, the fanatical watchdogs you fellows get to be. You're hoping and praying I turn up a scheming widow and proof that a third party was pushed off that subway platform and the corpse palmed off on you as Remo Torch.
Handle this delicately, as if we have nothing to do with it. Like it's a case of your own.
I can't be too delicate about exhuming a body. I need to get a court order for that. So do you want to get yourself another boy?
No, I'll stick with you, Craig.
Or be stuck with me. 10%, Brennahan. Any monies I recover for good old Trans-Southern, earmark 10% for Barrie Craig. While waiting for red tape to unravel on the court order for exhumation of a corpse, I went to see the scheming widow. 169 Seneca Street was her last known address. The street where the drunks outnumbered everybody else. I ran into a very curious development at 169 Seneca. No Widow Torch. A janitor who looked like his mind wandered explained the widow's absence.
Widow Torch is dead.
A dead policyholder and a dead, though rich, beneficiary. I had quite a cast of live suspects. The next evening, I drove myself to the Hillcrest Cemetery on Sycamore Street out in Long Island, where the mangled remains of Remo Torch had been buried. I had a signed court order okaying exhumation to serve on the caretaker there, an old geezer named Sam Billings. Going through the big iron gate, I heard the night chimes. Night is a nice time to go calling on a graveyard, if you hate yourself. Every superstition you had as a kid comes back to haunt you. You begin to see things and hear things. Going up a narrow path toward the caretaker's house, I heard things. A scream as if somebody was being murdered not 50 yards away. I got to the scream. It was the old caretaker Billings on the ground near an open grave in a dead faint. Caretaker came to, pop-eyed as if he'd seen the devil and clawing at me as if I was the devil. Quit it, Billings.
No, go away.
Keep choking me and I'll have to flatten you. I'm Barrie Craig, a confidential investigator, now concentrating on insurance. Now, if you can collect your wits, old man.
You're an investigator?
Who'd you think I was?
Him.
Him? Who?
The risen dead.
Makes sense, old man.
I was making my rounds like every night when I heard a noise. A noise I'll never forget if I live to be 100.
The odds are away against you, the hypertension you've got.
I turned to look, bringing my light close, and it was the lid of a coffin coming off, as if by itself.
Neatest trick of the century. And then what happened?
I lived to be 100.
We've already been through that.
Then the dead man got up and stood there, alive as you're standing here, all green under the moon.
How does the rest of the hallucination go?
I watched him go off, not making a sound, and walking in a funny little hop. And then...
You screamed and fainted dead away. The next thing you knew, you had your fingernails in my neck. Now get your bearings and throw a light on that coffin. I want to have a look.
See, the casket is empty.
Empty it is. So a stiff came to, forced the lid open, turned green under the moon, and then went on the town.
It's something to believe, but I saw it with my own eyes.
With that 20/20 vision you don't have, did you also see who dug him up?
Dug him up?
That's what I asked, if you'll really open your eyes. 6 feet of dirt piled in 2 neat hills on both sides of the grave. See it?
Yes.
To get out from under, your stiff needed a muscular accomplice on the outside. Who was supposed to be buried in that grave? I can't make out the name on the tombstone.
Torch. Remote Torch.
The case was coming to life, but literally. I left caretaker Billings to sleep off his jitters and got into my car. Driving down tree-shaded Sycamore Street, my headlights picked up a character moving along the sidewalk in a funny little hop. A funny little hop were exactly the words the caretaker had used describing his stiff who'd come alive. My man on the sidewalk was loping along like that, a kind of hop, skip, like a guy who had no control over his reflexes. I switched from brights to dims, slowed the car down to a crawl, and trailed him into a tavern a big neon sign advertised as Barnstable Inn. I went in after him. My man wasn't after eats or bottle goods. He was out to make a phone call. I watched him thumb through a directory, then get into a booth. As soon as it was safe, I eased into the adjourning booth to hear what I could hear.
I must see you. At once, tonight. Well, you must come. In Burnside Park, near the fountain. I'll be there waiting for you.
I watched him start for the open door of the tavern. I checked the phone directory where he'd left it open and read off the name where his fingernail had left a line under it. Mrs. Verna Talbot, it said. 2580 Marydale Drive. A guy risen from the dead was dating a woman. I was right there in Burnside Park in a grandstand seat behind a row of bushes when they met. My man was hanging off to his side as if he wasn't really meeting the woman, but ambushing her. I could hear her high heels clicking toward him.
Hello, Mary.
What? Mary? You're calling me Mary?
Yes.
You're not who you said you were on the telephone.
No, I'm not. It was a ruse to get you to come. I'll come out of the shadows so you can see my face. Well,
Your face is chalk.
it's a dead face.
And your eyes.
They're dead eyes, Mary. I've been dead, but I've come back. I've come back to claim you, Mary. Mary, my wife.
Oh, you're insane. I'm not your Mary or your wife. I don't even know you. Let me go. Help!
He wasn't just claiming her, he was strangling her. I got busy. Let go of her, mister. Suppose we postpone introductions for later.
Oh.
He might have been risen from the dead, but he reacted to the old one, too, like anybody else. He was out cold, stiff, like rigor mortis had come back. While he slept it off, I revived the dame and questioned her. I'm Barrie Craig, an investigator, madam. I'd like a few honest facts and no ad-libbing. Remember, I probably just saved your life.
I'm grateful. The man is insane.
You acted as if you didn't know him.
I never saw him before in my life.
He's allegedly a Remo Torch.
He said he'd come back from the dead.
So far as we know right now, could be. If you don't know the man at all, why did you agree to meet him here?
He telephoned me and said he was Tom Avery. I've known a Tom Avery.
Your name is Mrs. Verna Talbot?
Why, yes. How did you know?
Never mind how. You live with your husband?
Yes, I do. But he mustn't know I came here to meet Tom Avery.
Jealous?
Yes. We get along badly, my husband and I. we're together, but we live separate lives.
Oh,
May I please go now?
sure. I don't see why not. I watched her melt into the night, half mink, half woman. Then I sat down to rest up, take stock, and wait. I'd sure found myself a bright way of making a living. There I was in a public park at 2 a.m., waiting for a corpse to rise for the second time in one night. This time out of dreamland. Remo Torch, or whoever he really was, slowly came out of the dreamland I'd rocked him into. He got up on his feet, rubbing his jaw where I'd clipped him. With a wild gleam in his eye and his teeth showing, as if he were getting set to jump me, I threw a gun on him fast. Don't try anything, Torch, or I'll prove to you that dead men bleed. Gonna do what I say, nice and cooperatively?
I'll do what you say.
My car's outside the park. We'll get into it and drive to my apartment.
To your apartment?
For a heart-to-heart talk. Shake your head and I turn you over to the cops. It's all the choice you've got right now, me or the cops.
I'll go with you.
I got him home with me okay and put him to bed. When he fell asleep, I handcuffed him to the bed and tied his feet. Then I showered and waited for daylight and a good morning chat with Lieutenant Trev Rogers at Willie's Coffee Pot.
I don't get half of what you told me, Craig.
Half's enough to hold you for now. Feed ghost stories to little boys a spoonful at a time, an old teacher of mine used to say. Just you run down a few items I asked, huh, pal?
You want me to find out when Mary Torch died?
And who signed the death certificate, and where was she buried? Phone me the minute you know.
Craig.
Yeah?
Being your blind helper, just how did I get so degraded?
The coffee's my treat. Have yourself a second cup, chum. Torch was wide awake when I got back from Trav Rogers. I untied his feet, but kept the handcuffs on. All recovered from your busy night, Torch?
What do you want with me?
I'll settle for the story of your life.
I can only remember the story of my death. I died August 28, 1951.
Okay, I'll play straight man. Go ahead and tell me the story of your death.
My last day alive was a Friday. After breakfast, I left home and my wife, Mary, to take a subway train downtown. In the subway, the express platform was crowded, as it always was. But waiting for my train, I could feel one man closest to me.
Why this one man?
He went everywhere I went.
What did he look like?
Seeing him was like looking into a mirror and seeing myself.
He resembled you?
This man who was always behind me was a man with my face.
Oh, go on.
He was behind me, this man with my face. A train was coming in. I heard its warning sound, and then I saw it come at me, hissing like an iron dragon with enormous eyes that held me spellbound. I tried to push back, but hands threw me forward into the jaws of the iron dragon. No! That's how I died, August 28th, 3 months ago. You don't believe the story of my death?
When I do, peddle me to Bellevue. That's how you were supposed to have died August the 28th last. That's the phony story in the Trans-Southern insurance files. You were supposed to have died like that, Torch, only you didn't. Somebody else did.
Somebody else did?
Yeah. The patsy whose remains were identified as Remo Torch. The poor devil who was really in that coffin you supposedly stepped out of last night. Excuse me. Barrie Craig speaking.
Barrie, this is Trav Rogers. Mary Torch died a month ago. A heart attack. And Eric Carter signed the death certificate. She was buried in Hillcrest Cemetery like her husband before her.
I got it. Thanks, Trav.
Can I be of any further service to you?
Yeah, you can. Send one of your boys over to my apartment. I've got a prize package I want under lock and key while I roam the world. did the graveyard have it? There I was again at Hillcrest Cemetery, waving another court order at old caretaker Billings. This time with the name Mary Torch spelled out on it. Old Billings read the court order, sneaking a little foolish grin at me as he read.
Is to be in order, Mr. Craig?
Can you round up a couple of diggers right away? They can build Trans-Southern for the labor.
It's easy to do.
For a guy hoodooed by the risen dead last night, you're looking mighty cheerful today. I'll bet a tombstone you solved the mystery of the empty coffin for yourself.
You're a discerning man, Mr. Craig.
You found a body somewhere. The body the real Remo Torch sneaked out of that coffin before he got into it. In time for you to come along and get a knifeful. I'm right, huh?
You're right. And I'm a foolish old man.
Where'd you find the body that was buried as Remo Torch?
Not 20 feet from where we're standing.
Show me.
Right here, by those flower beds it was. Very shallow. Flowers had been tramped on, and I went to investigate. I saw the dirt had been turned over fresh, and then I noticed a foot. A foot sticking...
Cut. Leave something to my imagination. Now go round up those diggers. The slab of marble read Mary Torch. Two beefy gents were digging her up. They wore a look on their kisses that said they just loved to make an argument of it. They were the same team who'd buried the Mary Torch coffin only a month ago. To them, I was some creep undoing a work of art. Me and my court order. You've got the coffin exposed enough, men. Now use the crowbar on it. I soon got a look at the contents of the coffin.
No. Body, Mr. Craig. The casket's full.
Full is the word, Billings. Full of rocks. The answer to the rocks was obvious. Mary Torch's death was a phony and ditto her burial. I found out how it was maneuvered by an entry in the cemetery record book.
It's the name of the undertaker you want?
Or whoever supervised the so-called burial.
Huh. Here it is. Mary Torch. And Eric Carter supervised the burial. Does the name mean something to you?
Does it? Eric Carter's the same joker who also signed the phony medical certificate. The great insurance swindle and how it was accomplished began to stitch into one piece. I had almost all the answers, enough answers anyhow, to parlay into a climax. Only somebody was working his own idea of a climax to Barrie Craig. I'd left Hillcrest through the big iron gates for the drive back to Manhattan. I switched on the ignition. Good thing the cemetery was convenient. Took all the fuss and bother out of my burial. Oh! Risen dead. I was getting a whack at the trick myself. I was dragging toward a light no bigger than an arrowhead, waiting for me somewhere at the end of a long sleep. And bells tolling morning, the bells were saying. And wake up, Craig. Wake up.
Craig, look at me.
And the voice. The face of someone I'd seen around the trail. Rogers. How did you come to die, Trev?
I didn't. And neither did you, the miracle is. You're in Shore Park Hospital. In emergency. A time bomb hooked to your starter cable. Step on the car starter and blow yourself up.
A gimmick with whiskers.
A long gray beard. It's an old murder device, moth-eaten, but They got you, Craig.
How bad am I?
You're one for Ripley.
I'm okay? Is that what you mean?
Just lacerations of the head and neck. Shock. You're wearing more bandages than King Tut. You're also minus an automobile.
I'll build Trans-Southern. Trev, get me out of here. I want Remo Torch back. As soon as I'm dressed, he and I are going bye-bye. I taxied Remo Torch across town to an address in my little black book, 2580 Meridale Drive. I'm reuniting you with the lady you made a scene over last night, Torch.
Yes, you.
Us. May we come in?
But,
You remember Remo Torch?
well, yes, of course. After last night, could I forget?
I guess not. Especially since he only tried to strangle you. It'd be even harder to forget him if you were his wife.
His wife. I'm Verna Talbot. My husband is George Talbot, a manufacturer's representative.
Hooray for employment. Is your husband around?
Yes,
Introduce him to us.
very well. George,
Yes, Verna.
this is my husband, Mr. Craig.
That's him.
Him, Torch? Him who?
The man with my face. It's my murderer. My murderer.
Get this madman off me.
Torch! No more of that. Let go of him. My apologies for my friend's behavior, Talbot. There does seem to be a superficial resemblance between you. Same general features, sort of.
Nonsense. This man's plainly insane.
Insane like a fox. I'd say Torch has a pretty shrewd idea of what he's up to. I'd even say he was trying to drive a couple of schemers crazy before the law caught up with them.
I don't understand a thing you're saying, Mr.
Craig.
Craig.
All Greek to you, huh? Suppose I spell it out and you see if you get the drift. Torch's wife had him marked for murder. The lady wanted to cash in his insurance and then marry her boyfriend, an Eric Carter. The boyfriend began following poor Torch around, waiting for a chance to knock him off. But Torch caught on to what was cooking and figured out a way of outsmarting the schemers. Drop the insanity pose, Torch, and tell them how you did it.
I hired an unemployed bit actor to wear my clothes and play at being me.
The actor came down the steps of Torch's house every morning, stopped at the same newsstand, then went into the subway to ride to his office, as Torch would. Am I right on that, Torch?
Yeah.
The device worked. You fell for it, Talbot, because you'd never actually met Remo Torch.
Did you say I fell for it?
I said just that. You pushed a stooge hired by Torch under that train. Madam here identified what was left of the stooge and collected her $50,000. But Torch was really alive and kicking all the time. How much does it take to coax a confession out of you, Mr. Eric Carter, alias Talbot? Or you, Mrs. Torch?
We're caught, Eric.
Are we, Mary? I rather think I have our little problem very much under control. Keep your hands as they are, Craig.
No good, Carter. How far do you think a gun's going to get you?
Oh, I told you we'd lose, Eric.
Stop whining, you fool. Face it, Carter. The lady wants out. The way it's stacking, I'll bet she turns state's evidence. Now, drop that gun.
Get back, Craig.
I said drop it.
You crazy fool. Let go, my...
Oh. When you shoot somebody, Carter, be sure you keep possession of the gun.
Craig, I didn't mean to shoot you. It was an accident in the struggle for the gun. Craig, don't shoot me.
Tit for tat. In a minute, I'm going to pass out. I don't want you on the loose when I do. Tit for tat in the leg. Just enough to make you stay put.
Craig, no.
Torch.
Yes, Craig.
Call police headquarters. Rogers. Lieutenant Trav Rogers. Wake up from a long sleep, and there's the same face in front of you, like a pin-up on a wall.
Don't look now, Craig. But you're back in Shore Park Hospital. Emergency.
What's my medical complaint this time?
Bullet in your left thigh. You'll be out in a week. And limp for a month.
Oh, great.
Well, now that you're conscious, you want to talk.
Eric Carter masterminded the phony death and burial of Mary Torch. And also planted the time bomb.
1 minute, Craig.
Yeah?
You're forgetting you played the case very close to the vest. That you so far only told me about half of it.
Oh. That makes the conclusions I'm giving you a little puzzling.
A little incomprehensible.
How long did you say I lay over here?
A week.
Pull up a bed, Trad.
Pull up a bed?
I got a long story to tell you. As the conscientious officer of the law, I know you want to hear it. Weak as I feel, and long as the story is, I figure it will take about a week to tell. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
The trouble with murder as a business is that very few of the men who take it up have any judgment. Sooner or later, they run it right into the ground.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. With the weather what it is, a smart operator would be spending his evenings indoors, parked near the steam heat, with a glass in his hand and a small warm glow in the region of his lower chest. I guess I don't qualify. I still like to take walks. Around about this time of the night, there's not much on the street. The air's cold and clean. It's nice to find out you have a pair of lungs which can use that air.
Hey, you!
Me?
Hold it, huh?
Hold what?
The lippy type, huh?
No, just not quick, that's all.
You're Craig.
That's more or less what I answer to.
I got a job for you.
I better make a note of it.
What the devil you took?
How often does a job come running after a man?
I'd save the conversation for a friend, Craig. You would like to make a couple of hundred easy?
Me and most of the adult male population of the United States.
Take this.
This? A small puppet.